Hello, hello, hello. Pray you guys are having an amazing day, an amazing night, better yet, because it is almost 11 o'clock. Sorry for going live so late, but I had one of the most amazing after church naps that there is, very much needed. And so now I am alive. I am happy. I'm bushy tailed, bright eyed, all of that good stuff. And I'm ready to teach. I'm ready to teach. And I pray that this has been a really good week for you guys. I pray that this has been a really amazing week. A little bit of small talk. I wasn't, there are a lot of times when I'm getting ready to go live or I plan to go live and I'm trying to think, okay, what do God want me to teach on? What should I teach on? What am I sensing or what have you? But I can be honest and say today was one of those days where there were a lot of things I felt like I wanted to teach on. And I literally had to remember that I'm still teaching on marine spirits. I literally, because I had planned the entirety of yesterday and the majority of today, I had planned to come and talk about, Bible prophecies being fulfilled. And I'll likely come back and talk about that, like the Euphrates River drying up and all of that stuff. And what should you do in cases like that? We have so many signs that right now are visible, that are tangible, that are right there before our eyes, Bible prophecies being fulfilled. What should we be doing in this hour? That was the one thing that I wanted to talk about on today. I will give you this. And again, this is just kind of introductory talk as you come in. I will give you this. You know, um, I've been seeing a lot of talks about this on TikTok, and people are saying, "Hey, get yourself right with the Lord." And one of the things that I want to go ahead and put out there, because my objective is to make sure that you have the right relationship with God, not just a relationship with God, but the right relationship with God. Because my concern is that a lot of people will go before God and think, okay, well, I was saved, I'm a Christian, and we'll hear those dreadful words. I think a lot of us fear when we hear that scripture that talks about they're gonna come before him saying, then we prophesy in your name, and in your name then we cast out devils and yada yada. And he's going to say, get away from me, for I never knew you. And that's a scary thing to even consider. So I wanted to deal with that on today, because one of the things I do want to make sure, now I'm not going to do that because I'm going to be talking on the Leviathan spirit today. But one of the things I will give you is this: make sure you have a right relationship with God. A right relationship with God, you may say, what does that look like? Everybody says go to the left, everybody says go to the right. What does a right relationship with God looks like? You have to consider who he is. The Bible says that he is love. God is love. So that means that you want to make sure that you love God with all of your heart, your mind, your soul, all of your strength, everything that you are, and love people. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. You want to make sure you're moving in love. That's it, and that's all. Everything else falls into line. That's why he says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and everything else will be added to you. I can't place emphasis on this enough. Love is the answer. I can't place emphasis on this enough. Love is the absolute answer. It will change your life. It will change your mind. Love is not an easy thing. I can honestly say that, um, because we are amongst people, human beings, and human beings prove themselves to be very hard to love all the time, including myself. I think we all prove ourselves in many cases to be hard to love, and I think a lot of us, including myself, don't think that we're hard to love. Nevertheless, other people will come and say, hey, I think you're a little bit difficult. Um so the thing is, you just make a point to say, God, give me your heart for your people, give me a heart for you, and you have to seek him. And this is just, like I said, small talk as we're coming in. Sister Octavia, you're beautiful. Thank you, sis. I love you. God bless you. But make sure that you're seeking him and not seeking heaven. I can't put enough emphasis on that. Make sure you're seeking him and not seeking heaven, because too many Christians are seeking heaven. And if you're seeking heaven, that does not deal with your character here on earth, and it will deceive you. If you're seeking heaven, you have the same mentality as a woman or a man who goes after a sugar daddy or a sugar mama because they want to live in their house, they want to have the houses, the cars, and all of that, but they don't have a heart for those people. And I don't know about you, but I can honestly say I don't want to be in a relationship with somebody who's using me, somebody who does not love me. Now, I understand the whole concept that whenever you have relationships with people, you're all using each other for something, whether it's friendship, but that's just no. But I'm talking about using you to the point where a person is in your life has no desire to care for you, just wants to sit there, be intimate with you, and draw benefits, but does not want to give love in return. And that's what a lot of people are offering God, is the ability to come live in his house, to be in his presence, but to have the heart of Lucifer toward him. To have the heart of Lucifer toward him. And he's like, no. He's like, no, that's not going to happen. So just make sure in this hour that you are working on your heart, working on your relationship with God. Don't focus on working on your relationship with people. If you work out your relationship with God, your relationships with people will line up. I don't know who needed to hear that, because a lot of times we spend a lot of effort, energy, time, and resources trying to fix things with people. And I've learned you literally can't do that. The only thing that you can do, this is what I tell couples. Anytime I come across a couple and they're at odds with each other, anytime I come across a family and they're at odds with each other, anytime I see division of any sort, I've come to understand that reconciliation does not take place with you just sitting down and saying, you made me mad. Oh, you made me mad. That usually starts an argument. Reconciliation comes when you bring God to the table, when you sit back and say, okay, what does the Bible say about this? What does God say about this? I love my pink. I love you. Thank you, sis. God bless you. God bless you. What does God say? And if you can agree in God, if you can meet up, there is no marriage that can't be restored, no friendship that can't, there is nothing that can't be restored if you're willing to meet with God as the head, allowing God to reveal and to fix. That goes into the Leviathan argument, because Leviathan is a covenant breaking spirit. But let's go ahead and get into this. Like I said, I told you guys I was going to do 3 weeks. I think I said 3 weeks of marine spirit teaching. And the reason I wanted to do this is because we are we're doing a conference at my church. And I want to encourage you guys to come out to this conference. We are doing a deliverance conference. This Saturday, I'll be teaching. This Saturday, we will have a mass deliverance. So if you or somebody you know is in need of deliverance, get out to the church this Saturday, 4665 Macklin Road in Powder Springs, Georgia, 11 o'clock a.m. Embassy City. It's Embassy City. It comes up on Google as Relentless Atlanta, I think. I'm not sure if it's still showing that, but get out to the church. We're going to have a mass deliverance. Jordy Love, you're beautiful. Thank you, sis. God bless you. I really appreciate you. But get out to the church. If you are in need of deliverance, if you want to know more about the ministry of deliverance and what have you, if you missed the 3 weeks, then when you come out, it's completely free. But if you missed the 3 weeks, come out and show up, get the revelation, buy the CD, order the CD, well, register for the school so you can get the ebook and all that other stuff. You'll be able to watch the other 3 weeks of teaching or what have you. But we had a mass deliverance this Saturday, and it was amazing. A lot of people got free. It was a lot of demons manifesting all over the place. It was amazing. This week we're going to have a mass deliverance as well, and it's going to be awesome. So even if you're out of town, if you want to get free, I highly recommend coming to this conference. Make sure you're planted in a good church home. Make sure if you're not planted in a good church home that you get immediately into a church home. Make sure that you're not just coming to church for deliverance and then you want to go back into sin or go back into your lifestyle, because I don't want you to go back out here and get bound again. And I just want to make sure I give you that, because that's me trying to make sure that you don't have the wrong mindset as it relates to deliverance, that you don't just show up to wash away the effects of your sin and then you go back out into the sin with a clear mind. Because anytime, and I'm getting to the lesson, anytime you go through deliverance, your capacity is increased. And what I mean by your capacity is increased, it's like my living room right now. If you were to clean out my living room, it would have a greater capacity because it's empty. You catch that? It would have a greater capacity, which means there are more things I can get in here, which is why 7 spirits come back more wicked than itself. So if you go get deliverance and you're not willing to fill that space, if you're not willing to go to church, if you're not willing to do any of those things, then you're setting yourself up to be bound again. I don't know what's going on with my camera. It looks a little bit weird. I don't know if it's my lighting. I've been needing to upgrade this camera. I do have a camera over here that I could be using. I'm going to have to start trying to use it or what have you. I got my office space, and I like to be going live from there as well. I'm going to get some new cameras for sure for that particular space. But that's neither here nor there. I want to talk about the Leviathan spirit. This is one of the marine spirits that I wanted to deal with. I may come back and talk about Jezebel. I don't know. But I really wanted to deal with the Leviathan spirit. That was the one thing I thought about talking. I thought about teaching on the first time, but it's something I definitely want to make sure that I go ahead and mention it this time. We're going to be dealing with the Leviathan spirit. Now, if you've never heard of the Leviathan spirit is a spirit behind pride. I'm going to start off by reading a few scriptures about the Leviathan spirit. I think I pulled some up. All right, I'm going to give you a few scriptures about the Leviathan spirit. And then I'm going to start by giving you facts, and then I'm going to give you some things. I'm going to give you characteristics or symptoms of the Leviathan spirit. Isaiah 27:1. In that day, the Lord with his sword and great and strong sword shall punish Leviathan, the piercing serpent, even Leviathan, that crooked serpent, and he shall slay that dragon that is in the sea. That's Isaiah 27:1. Job 41:1. Canst thou draw out Leviathan with a hook, or his tongue with a cord which thou lettest down? I'm going to read Job 41:1 on down, and we'll see where we end. Can thou draw out Leviathan with a hook, or his tongue with a cord which thou lettest down? Can thou put a hook into his nose, or bore his jaw through with a thorn? Will he make any supplications unto thee? Will he speak soft words unto thee? Will he make a covenant with thee? Wilt thou take him for a servant forever? Wilt thou play with him as with a bird? Or wilt thou bind him for thy maidens? Shall the companions make a banquet of him? Shall they part him among the merchants? Canst thou feel his skin with barbed irons, or his head with fish spears? Lay thy hand upon him. Remember the battle. Do it no more. Which version is this in my reading? It's got to be King James. Behold, the hope of him is in vain. Shall not one be cast down even at the sight of him? None is so fierce that dare stir him up. Who then is able to stand before me? Who has prevented me that I should repay him whatever is under the whole heaven? And of course, I'm going to stop right there. And there is more talk on Leviathan in this particular scripture, but this is when God was rebuking Job. God was rebuking Job. Psalm 74:14. Thou breakest the head of Leviathan in pieces and gave him to be meat to the people inhabiting the wilderness. And of course, what's talking about this is when the Israelites were brought out of Egypt or what have you. And the Bible says that God gave Leviathan to them. He gave Leviathan to them for meat. And that has everything to do with the pride of their hearts, the haughtiness of their hearts, the haughtiness of their hearts. And I'll stop right there. And again, I'm going to give you some facts about Leviathan. Now, again, Leviathan is a spirit. And I'm going to give you some facts, some of the things that I've come to know about Leviathan. And then again, I'm going to give you some characteristics about Leviathan. I'm trying to find what I did with y'all. Okay, let me see what I did with y'all. Okay, here y'all are. Sister Retanya, you're awesome. Thank you. Hope Redeemed. Thank you. God bless you. God bless you. All right. Okay, let's get some facts about Leviathan. I'm going to move through the facts quick because I want to get to the characteristics of the Leviathan spirit. If you have not done so already, be sure to like, be sure to share. This is going to be really helpful. The objective here is to make sure that we have knowledge. Make sure that we have knowledge and what have you. Because with knowledge, and not just knowledge, but understanding, God said in the Bible, above all thy getting, get understanding. If you have understanding, it makes life a whole lot easier, right? So facts about Leviathan. Number one, it is a guarding spirit. This is one of the things I've learned about it. It was a God was rebuking Job. It is a guarding spirit. It is a guarding spirit. And what I mean by it is a guarding spirit, typically there are higher ranking spirits that it is guarding, that is trying to make sure that are not cast out. So for example, a lot of times in the ministry of deliverance, when I come in contact with Leviathan, and I'm not saying in every case, but a lot of times it's guarding Jezebel. And so it makes it where you begin to lift up in your heart. One of the things I've learned about it is it keeps you coming into agreement with it. Like you'll keep coming into agreement. First, you keep making poor decisions, or things just keep happening to you, and then you keep coming into agreement with it. I'm going to give you an example, and I'm kind of jumping ahead of myself, I know, but I'll give you an example of what that looks like. From this point on, you know what? From this point on, this is what I'm gonna do with the people. I'm gonna change. This is the new me. I'm gonna do this, and then the new you, the new change. You still find out that people are people, and the next thing you know, you're just constantly making all of these agreements and deals in your heart. As to, it's basically like moving away from love, and does that make sense? It's basically like moving away from love. It's like, okay, from this point on, you know what? When I see y'all, I'm just gonna speak and keep going. I'm not speaking. I ain't fooling with y'all. It keeps you making all of those agreements, and then you start moving in that agreement, and then you start getting frustrated all over again. Then you have a couple of more folks, then you get offended, you get hurt. It literally takes you, and and this is his way of binding you. Like it's constricting you. It literally takes you, and it starts to swallow you whole. It starts to swallow you whole. I immediately remember. I told this story 1,000 times before. But some of y'all are new. I immediately think about when I was living in Mississippi, and at this particular time, I was living by myself or what have you. And I came home. I had two Siberian Huskies. I came home one day and I took my Siberian Huskies out, which was my norm. I didn't have a fenced-in backyard. Siberian Huskies are the great escape artists. If you don't know them, they'll take you through some stuff. So I had these long ropes. Like whenever I took them out, because they disrespected chains. So I had these long ropes that I would tie them to so they could use the bathroom and have a little bit of outdoor time or what have you. So every day when I came home from work, I would come home, I would take them, I would tie them out, leave them out for 20 minutes to 30 minutes, and then I would bring them in. So I took them out, sometimes 15 minutes, but I took them out, and I remember coming outside or something, and I saw my female husky. She was, and these were long ropes, right? But thankfully, her rope wouldn't let her get up to the door, to the side door, because it was in the backyard. But it got her, it let her get to it, but not all the way. Like I noticed that she was kind of leaning. Sister Haley, you're beautiful. Thank you, sis. God bless you. God bless you. She was leaning and she was stretching, trying to get something. And I never forget, I didn't even look to see what she was trying to get to. I just knew in that moment, pull her rope. Figure it out later. Pull her rope right now because she's looking at something. I pulled her rope. You know, I got her rope and I pulled her so gently. I'm like, I pulled over to me and she's still stretching. And that's when, once I got her safely within my presence, I looked over and I saw a snake. And the snake had a frog in his mouth. True story. The snake had a frog in his mouth. It hadn't swallowed the frog. The frog wasn't dead. The frog was sitting there, and I saw the thing that like that thing that under his neck that makes it say ribbit. I saw that, or what have you, because it was going in backwards, and the snake was just sitting there. The snake didn't try to run from me because it was pretty much immobilized because it was in the middle of eating, and the frog was paralyzed. I'm pretty sure. I didn't know what to do. I got my dogs and I took him in the house and I called 911. True story. I called 911. I said, I don't know who to call. It's a snake in my yard and what have you. They came out. They actually came out. The cops came out. And the guy that showed up, he was laughing at me. He came out and he asked me if I had any jar or anything because he was an animal lover. He loves snakes and all that. He was an animal lover. And I told him, I was like, I got a pickle. I had a jar that had pickles in it, but I think I had one pickle left or was no pickles left. And I was like, I can empty that out and wash it out. He was like, yeah, get that for me and what have you. And he asked me if I had a knife. He put holes in the lid. He said he was going to take it to the country and release it. But I remember him saying something along the lines, I think he said it was a grass snake or what have you. But I'm saying that to say that's very similar to how Leviathan moves. It can't swallow you whole. It has to take you in increments. And it has to do that through agreement. It has to take you in increments. It has, like a woman in a relationship with a hard-hearted man who mismanages her, mistreats her. It takes her in slowly but surely. So she'll spend quite a bit of time trying to fix things with him But then she'll keep making these agreements in her head. She'll say, you know what? I'm gonna stop trying. Because here it was. I come home. I come home from work and I'm cleaning up this house. He don't say thank you. He don't show any appreciation. Instead, he wants to focus on what isn't done. I work just like he does. So then she comes into agreement with, I'm not gonna do as much as I used to do anymore. And then that's okay. Now she's going a little bit into the mouth of Leviathan. And then the next thing you know, she comes back and she says, you know what? I'm going to stop trying to fix things with him. I'm going to stop arguing with him. He want to be stupid. I'm going to let him be stupid. She's getting swallowed up by Leviathan. Every time she comes into agreement with that spirit, it's sucking her up. It's sucking her up. You know why? Because, and this is me jumping ahead, it's a covenant breaking spirit. It's a covenant breaking spirit. So one, and I jumped ahead, but it's fine. It is a guarding spirit. That was number one. These are the facts about Leviathan. It is a guarding spirit. The objective of it is to protect other unclean spirits. To protect other unclean spirits. Whenever there are other unclean spirits there, its objective is to protect those spirits so that you don't get free from them. So, for example, the woman in question, if she has, let's say her husband has a Jezebel spirit, and she has, let's say, an Ahab spirit, it keeps her in that position, whereas she feels she's afraid of using her voice, or she feels like, look, using my voice doesn't work. He doesn't listen, so it brings her under subjection. It brings her under. It takes you under the water until it drowns you. Number two, it is likely the great fish that swallowed Jonah. And the Bible says it's a great fish that swallowed Jonah. I'm not going to spend a lot of time there because I've talked about that before, but it is more than likely the great fish that swallowed Jonah. A lot of times what you see in the Bible is, I don't want to say in this particular case symbolism, but it said great fish. And it's behind pride. And so that's just one of the things that I came to believe, is that it's likely the great fish that swallowed Jonah. We came to believe that it's a whale, or we were taught that it's a whale, but it's likely the Bible said great fish. The Bible said great fish. Number three, Pharaoh had a Leviathan spirit. This is why the Bible said God hardened his heart. That's what Leviathan does. God likely turned him over to the enemy. This is what we call a reprobate mind. He had a hard heart. And again, Pharaoh was, Egypt was surrounded by water, which is why they were able to cross out of Egypt into the Red Sea. But 9 times out of 10, Pharaoh, and this is just, this part is just something that I come to believe, but it is likely the great fish that swallowed Jonah, and Pharaoh had a Leviathan spirit. Pharaoh had a Leviathan spirit. A lot of times whenever God is about to allow a person to fall, he will allow Leviathan. Now, I didn't say he sends Leviathan. He will allow Leviathan to harden their hearts. I think pretty sure King Saul had a Leviathan spirit. Their hearts get hard to the point where they start coming into agreement. And now I want to destroy the person who broke my heart. I want to destroy the person who disappointed me. I want to destroy that person. It is behind a hard heart. 9 times out of 10, again, Pharaoh had a Leviathan spirit. Obviously, Saul had a Leviathan spirit. Number 4, it fuels unforgiveness through gossip and slander. It fuels unforgiveness through gossip, slander, also through ungodly thoughts. Ungodly thoughts. So let's just hound on the ungodly thoughts. She rolled her eyes at you. She doesn't, or typically it says me, so that you think you're thinking she doesn't like you. So what is it doing? It's getting you to harden your heart. You're that frog in the mouth of the snake, right? So slowly but surely you go into unforgiveness. Slowly but surely you come out of agreement with God as it relates to people. Slowly but surely you start seeing people based on their issue and stop seeing them based on their anointing or what God has said about them. But it fuels unforgiveness. Have y'all liked and share? Be sure to like and share. Be sure to like and share. But it fuels unforgiveness through gossip, slander, and ungodly thoughts. It fuels it. I'll say this. I've told this story before. I remember when I fell into the trap of unforgiveness and I didn't know I was there. And that's when I was married, and his relative sister, I might as well say it because I think I've said it plenty of times, but his sister was always contending. Like it was an everyday attack. Because he talked to her every day, and every day she was throwing darts at me every day. And it wasn't a case where I was saying anything. It was just that she'd get on the phone, where's your stupid wife, or what have you. And over the course of time, it brought me into unforgiveness and hatred, because this was a daily attack. right? I wasn't covered by him. So it was a daily attack. And I was a Christian. I loved the Lord. I was writing books. You couldn't have told me that I would fall into the trap of unforgiveness. You couldn't have told me that, because I knew about unforgiveness. I taught about unforgiveness, but I was dealing with a repeated attack. Consequently, now this is to say, you have to remove yourself from the environment when you're dealing with an attack like that, because you will be brought into unforgiveness, and that's what ended up happening to me. And the Lord had to rebuke me. The Lord had to deal with me, because one day I pridefully started talking about, oh, she thought she doing something. She thought she was going to destroy my marriage and all that. I was pridefully talking. I was saying it from a place of exaltation, pride, or what have you, thinking about all the years she had been doing all of that. And I was thinking that I was secure, false sense of security. And I remember the Lord hit me right there in that moment. He said, no, the enemy was never after your marriage, because it's not godly in the first place. He said he was after your heart. The objective was to get you to stop guarding your heart while you're trying to protect your marriage. The objective was to get you into unforgiveness, and he succeeded. You know it's God when you get rebuked. You know it's God when you sit there, because when it's not God, when you constantly keep hearing flattery, it's okay. You didn't know, you didn't understand. That might not be God. I'm going to tell you how. And in some cases, it could be, because some cases you may be a babe in Christ. But I'm going to tell you how God rebukes me. God hit me real hard in that moment. God allowed me to see in that moment that I had fallen into the trap of unforgiveness. I had fallen into the trap of unforgiveness to the point of hatred, to the point where I had a spirit of murder moving in me, whereas I wanted to see this woman give up her ghost. And you could not have told Tiffany, you could not have told me that I would allow myself to be dragged into that place. But that's what Leviathan does. Leviathan will keep taking you deeper and deeper, and typically you're unconscious, right? Think about drowning in water. If you're unconscious, you're not aware of the fact that you're being taken deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's what Leviathan was doing. Every attack took me deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And one thing Leviathan does is he points out how good you are versus how bad other people are. That he always does that distinction. He always points out, you're not even talking about her. You haven't bothered her. You've been nothing but nice to her. You didn't deserve this attack. You know what it does? It brings you into that that it don't make any sense. It takes you into that space where you start thinking, man, I'm not, I didn't deserve that, because it takes you deeper and deeper into unforgiveness by that. Sister Elizabeth, you're awesome. You're beautiful. Thank you, sis. God bless you. I didn't deserve that. I was nice to her. I never did anything to her. I didn't deserve that. But it takes you deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, because it wants you to come into agreement with it. It wants you to come into agreement with it. All right, it fuels unforgiveness through gossip, slander, and ungodly thoughts. Ungodly thoughts. A lot of times it's also behind accusation. It's also, I want to make sure I mention that. If you do something wrong, it will typically remind you of what you did wrong. It will remind you of what you did wrong. Number 5, it partners with guilt and shame to keep you silent. See how I just jumped ahead of myself? That's what it does. It partners with guilt and shame. So if you did do something wrong, a lot of times it will make you feel guilty and shame, and you hate that feeling. So you start to guard yourself, so your pride. So for example, let's say you're married and your husband stays out a little later than normal. He gets off at 8 p.m. All right, let's just say he gets off at 8 p.m. And his job is 30 minutes from the house. So on average, he's home by 8:35, 8:45 on average, unless he goes, makes a stop somewhere, where have you. But on average, if he's gonna make a stop, he calls you. This particular day, he calls you. He says, "Hey, I'm gonna be running a little bit behind." Okay, cool. And you wait, because normally when he says he's gonna be behind, he tells you where he's going. He'll say, "I need to run by the gas station, or I want to run by the store," or what have you. Typically, he does that. But on this particular day, he doesn't do that. He just out, and you say, why? He said, I'll be running behind. Dang, I got to tell you everything. So what it does is, once he gets off the phone with you, it's going to inundate your mind with thoughts of him kissing another woman, making love to another woman. It will inundate your thoughts, because the objective is to bring you under the influence of offense and fear. And then what ends up happening is, let's say this man comes home. He comes home and he walks in through the door. You're just arguing. You say, you know what? I'm really tired of this. You've been acting really weird over the last few weeks, and I'm not honestly. I don't deserve this, and quite frankly, I don't even know why I stick around for it because it's not like you the best thing to be married to. So you end up covenant. It's a covenant breaking spirit. You end up saying a lot of vicious things and a lot of ugly things to him, and the next thing you know, he's just standing there. He says, um, "Happy anniversary." You forgot. You like anniversary. He said, "Yeah, I'll be right back." He goes out to the car. He comes in. He has balloons, teddy bear, and all of that stuff. He sits it down and he says, "Hope you enjoy yourself." And he walks out the door. So you go running out the door because, again, it partners with guilt and shame. You go running out the door instead of saying, "I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I'll get help." You say, "You could have told me." No, I forgot. Okay, I'm human. You could have told me. You could have told me that you were going to give me a gift. I forgot that today was our anniversary. I remember thinking about it. I've been going through a lot. I've been going through a lot, and you didn't say anything. So rather than you taking accountability in that moment and saying, "Hey, I apologize. I shouldn't have. I shouldn't have jumped." I literally started having all these crazy thoughts. It took me into a place of hurt and then fear and then anger. I lashed out at you. I understand if you don't want to be here with me. I get it. I'm telling you right now, I'm repenting to you. You didn't do anything wrong. It was totally me. I'm gonna go get the help that I need. I'm gonna first thing tomorrow. I'm going to set up a therapy session. I want to work this out. I don't want to lose my marriage to you. I don't want to beat you down. And obviously, I still got some healing to do. Obviously, so can you forgive me? Rather than doing that, you spend that time defending yourself because you're defending guilt and shame. Guilt and shame, guilt, condemnation, and shame. You're right there in that moment because demons don't like you to expose them. Because the minute you sit back and say, "I'm sorry, I was wrong," the minute you sit back and say that, those spirits are exposed. And James 4:7 comes into play. Submit yourself to God, resist the devil, and he'll do what? Flee from you. In other words, you go through deliverance. In other words, right there in that moment, without a deliverance minister standing there, without somebody saying that come up and out, that right there in that moment, guilt and shame has to come out. Right there in that moment. Then you keep going through the process. You say, "Let me get therapy." You go through the process of therapy. What you're dealing with, this is spiritual warfare. Because the war is not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities and the rulers of this dark world and spiritual wickedness in high places. Number 6, it sets you up to be offended. It sets you up to be offended. It's a covenant breaking spirit. Unrealistic expectations. I put that in parentheses. Unrealistic expectations. I immediately think about, any person that has, like for me, having a mentorship program. That's beautiful. I got some of the most amazing. Y'all should see. You got to go to my Facebook page to see the gift that they did. They surprised me. Um, Two of the ladies came to my house that are local to me or what have you. They surprised me. Beautiful surprise. You have to go to my Facebook page, Tiffany Buckner, and you can see the video. But what was I talking about? Oh, when it comes down to I've had people to register with unrealistic expectations, and it's frustrating because those spirits like to put you in a predicament, like you darn if you do, darn if you don't. That literally demons will really put you between a rock and a hard place. I've had people to say, "Hey, I just joined your membership. Give me your phone number." And I'm like, "No, the students don't have my phone number. We communicate via message board. Why did I register if I'm not going to get your phone number?" That's not how that works. And so I've had people to give me like, you're not doing this, you're not doing it. And I'm like, "Hey, this is mentorship. Mentorship, we can never customize a mentorship to fit your fantasy. Because what your fantasy does is it literally takes the leader and takes them into bondage. Your fantasy takes the leader into bondage, whereas you become the center of their attention. And so now you have to shut down YouTube. You got to shut down everything else you're working on because you wanted undivided attention. What happened this week? Oh, okay. Your Uncle Earl, he came over and he at your house and he won't leave. Oh, I sure heard that. I sure hate that happen. or what have you. But what it does is it sets you up with all of these fantasies, these unrealistic expectations, because it puts a person, basically, it makes you take other people into captivity. And then if they refuse to go into captivity, it gets you mad so that you break the covenant, you break the agreement, you break it. And that way you don't get free. You go deeper and deeper into victimhood. I like to reveal the devil. It takes you deeper and deeper into victimhood. Victimhood is Leviathan's favorite place. It's his favorite neighborhood of thinking. It will make you have, like, you'll go to a church and with unrealistic expectations. When Leviathan realizes it can't stop you from going to church, that you want God, what it'll do is it will make you sabotage. It partners with the spirit of sabotage. It will make you sabotage your time there. It'll make you go up in there with the fantasy of, I'm gonna go in here and I'm gonna get close to the pastor. That's what I'm gonna do. We're gonna be besties. And I'm gonna tell them my story. I'm gonna tell him my story. And he's gonna be like, oh, woman of God, I'm sorry that happened. You got an anointing on your life. It puts all these crazy fantasies in your mind, and then it tells you that you have good intentions. So, and you literally will have no negative thought. I've seen it too many times, people. No negative thought, no evil thought, no evil plan, but your heart is not healed. Your heart is not healthy. You'll have no evil plan. So you go up in there thinking, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. And then what Leviathan does is the leader going to have boundaries, and they have to have boundaries. They should have boundaries, right? You can't get close. You can't get, so your fantasy's not coming to pass. None of those things are coming to pass. Next thing you know, you get offended. Now you mad. Now you feel like, oh, this is a fake church. Unrealistic expectations, rather than you going to church to focus on the kingdom, to focus on God himself. You go in focusing on leadership and building friendships or what have you. You go in. You guys know I was in a cave for 9 years. One of the things I tell people, and you heard me say this, I tell people anytime they say I'm leaving the church, I say stop focusing on people. Don't go in with the mindset I'm going to make friends. Don't go in with the mind. Come in there. I want the word. God, use me. I yield myself to you. Focus on God, and he'll bring the right people. But don't go up in there focusing on, I ain't got no family. I got a crazy family. I want to get away from these crazy, toxic, ungodly friends. I want to make me some good, godly friends. If you go in there focusing on people, then you're going to zoom in on their issues, and that's going to lead you to offense. So unrealistic expectations, it sets you up to be offended by giving you unrealistic expectations with good intentions. Unrealistic expectations with good intentions. I'm just going to go up in there and I'm just going to tell them this. I've literally had people, and forgive me if you, it's happened a lot of times. I had people email me their phone number. I've had people walk up to me and say, hey, here's my phone number. Give me a call. I really need to talk to you. And I'm like, no, no, because one, I was doing coaching calls. I don't do them right now. I'm going to try to get back into it, but I'm like, it's too many people. But it sets the stage for them to get offended, because instead of them saying, let me find out protocol, how do you, what is it? Like, I need, if I wanted to set up a session with you, if I want to do that, it sets them up. It gives them an idea. No, try this way, try that way. And it sets them up to be offended. That way they won't get free because they walk away thinking about their good intentions. Does that make sense? They walk away thinking about their good intentions. I ain't had no bad plans for her. I just wanted to connect. I just wanted to be really good friends. I would have been, I've heard her talk about things that she's gone through with friends. I would have been a better friend to her, not realizing that that's spiritual warfare, not realizing that that's a spirit that's giving you these thoughts. This is why the Bible says casting down imaginations. It's not just evil or what you deem to be evil imagination. Fantasy leads you into unrealistic expectation. I hate that. I am absolutely, I abhor what fantasy does to people, because it gives them good intentions with bad hearts, and they don't realize why people are putting up a boundary and saying, I'm not trying to be mean. Hey, if you come into this church, get in the congregation. Just learn. Stop coming to church and thinking about connecting. Stop doing that, because it's setting you up for disappointment. It's setting you up for offense. It's setting you up. That's spiritual. That's how Leviathan does. It sets you up to be offended by giving you unrealistic expectations. Again, unrealistic expectations backed by good intentions. Number 7, it isolates people so that it can devour them. How many of you are in isolation? Many of you right now are in isolation. You stop going to church, you pull yourself away from people. I was in isolation for 9 years. And even when I came out of isolation, I was still mentally in isolation. And it has been a fight because a lot of times when you're in isolation, basically, you find your comfort zone, your peace, or what have you. You ain't got to go through the drama of people. You ain't got to go through the drama of all those things. And so when God started bringing me out of isolation, I almost went back in because, when you come out and you start dealing with people, then people on people, and you're like, see, this is when I was at my house. I ain't had to deal with this drama or what have you. But the objective is to love people. You have to go and be in contact with people to love. That's the only way your love is going to grow. Your love for people is not going to grow within the corridors of your house, within the confines of your house. Your love for people is not going to grow. Basically, you're locking yourself into a season of your life. Whenever you isolate yourself, now I minister to myself in this, but you're locking yourself in a season of your life, and you're not allowing yourself to go out so that God can take you into another season. You can come to a different conclusion when dealing with people. God brought me out so much, and he allowed me to deal with the hurt and the offense to the point where eventually my deliverance came from God saying these words with me. He said, intercession over accusation. Intercession over accusation. What that means is if you see something, pray. Stop allowing that stuff to mull over in your mind, because what it does is it makes you say, okay, this is how I'm gonna move from this on because I see this issue and I don't feel like dealing with that. He said intercession. If I show it to you, I want you to intercede. It's not for you. I had to learn that with even the friends. Like I would sit there and say, hey, you did this, A, B, C, Y, Z, all that. And this is the reason why I got to pull away. This is the reason why I got to do this. Intercession over accusation. Intercession over accusation. All right. But it will isolate you so that it can lock you in your last season and devour you. Number 8, it uses common sense to combat the peculiar works of God. Your street smarts, all of that stuff is foolishness to God. And a lot of times what God does, he uses the foolish things of this world to confound the wise. A lot of times what God does is he'll do something peculiar, but you're so locked in common sense that you're just like, see, that's common sense. That's the reason why I'm not doing this. So you become like your own protector instead of allowing God to be your protector. You become your own protector by using common sense. See, this is the reason why I don't do that. That's the reason why I don't do that, or what have you. But it uses common sense to combat the peculiar works of God. It uses common sense where you come into church. I'll give you an example. You come into church and you see people praying, and you're looking at the altar and they laying hands, and you see people falling. And then you will sit there and say, you know what? I think it's common sense, but it's not true. Common sense. They pushing those people. Some of the people giving them courtesy falls, and that may be true in some cases, but in a lot of the cases, that's not true. So what is it will make you undermine the miracles and the works of God by getting you to become self-righteous, getting you to start saying, you see, it's accusation. Accusation. It uses common sense to combat the peculiar works of God. Number 9, it is behind many of the isms and divisive movements today. One thing I've learned is God is a just God. He likes balance. And I notice for me, I can watch something and I can go to the YouTube comments and stuff like that, and I see people. I've noticed that I always seem to see things from a middle. I never really take a side. I genuinely, and I'm not even talking about that. I'm literally thinking about Country Wayne show, right? I'm thinking about that, and I know don't nobody come for me but something that happened on that show. I'm not gonna go into that, but everybody's attacking this one girl. And I'm just sitting there scratching my head, like, yeah, but I see her point. I see her point. I get her point, but I get her point too. And God has always dealt with me. He said, that's because that's justice. That's the mediator. I called you to be a reconciler. Your assignment is to reconcile. So hear me when I say this. For those of you who are called to reconciliation, Leviathan comes against you to get you in an accusation instead. And it works for us many times, right? It works because there are times where the enemy can attack you in your immaturity. The enemy can attack you, or you can be in the middle of a sensitive place. But the thing about it is, you are called to reconcile things. You see stuff from the middle. So, for example, people go to taking this side where they saying, I don't necessarily the prosperity ministry, they this, they that. But then you're like, no, but the church has been broke. Like, we need them. Of course, you know, in every movement, there are some extremists. So maybe we had a few extremists that came out, but we need that. So you get a chance to see it and you're able to explain it from that place. You're able to explain it because you're called to reconcile the body of Christ. You're called to bring the body of Christ back together. But what was that? Number 9, it is behind many of the isms, like feminism. It is behind those isms, that divisiveness and divisive movements today. Another thing I think about immediately I think about is it will sit back and I see women, for example, and men. Like, there's this thing. How many of y'all heard of the passport bros? How many had heard of the passport bros? And it's going to lead me into number 10. But the passport bros, you know, these African American men that are going to other countries, their passports say they don't want to marry American women because they look for traditional women, and a lot of them are they're sloppy people, right? That's what it does. It typically divides. It has this ism, and then you have people that say these men ain't no good, men, and you have men that say women. It's behind those isms. It's behind those isms because at the end of the day, there are good men out there. They exist, even on American soil. They were born to American women. They were raised well. Some of them were not raised well, but they did the hard work in becoming good men. And then there are good women out there, right? But see, the thing about an ism is it makes you lazy. It's lazy discernment. It makes it where you decide to not get the healing. Okay. It makes it where you decide to not get healing and take accountability. But instead, what you do is you say, all these men. Okay, so you got your heart broke 7 times, which is an indictment against you. It shows that you're not healed enough. Your eye is not clear enough for you to see a good guy, for you to identify or to differentiate, because you're so focused on the fact that you're a good woman. You're so focused on the fact that you're a good woman, so your eye is not clear enough to see the guy, rather than you take accountability. Same thing with the guys. You know, these women, I'm going to give me a passport and I'm going to go over to another country. I'm going to go to another country. That way I don't have to fix me. That way I don't have to get delivered. I can sit there, find another woman in another country who doesn't understand culture, and I can sit here, and I can tell her American culture is my way of thinking. Narcissism. But it is behind many of the isms. I would dare to say this. I believe that a lot of narcissism comes from that imbalance. A lot of narcissism comes from imbalance, because whenever another word for balance is empathy. Is okay. Let me see things from your perspective. Let me see it from your perspective, right? Let me look at it from both sides of the coin. Let me look at it from different perspectives so that I can empathize with you. That way, when we sit at the table, we can come at this thing with a clear mind. Rather than me getting on my side of the spectrum, lifting up the way that I think, exalting the way that I think with my good intentions, hardening my heart, and then trying to change you as an individual. It is behind many of the isms on today, the divisive movements, divisive thinking. Whenever you say these men, when you say these women, that's Leviathan. That's Leviathan. What it does is it makes you harden your heart, which brings me into number 10. It is exposed to accountability. It hates accountability because accountability exposes it. It hates accountability. It hates when you say, I've dated 7 men in this time span, and they were all narcissists. They were horrible. These guys treated me poorly. Rather than you saying, what is it about me that drew those men? And why is it that we walk together? Because the Bible says the name is 3:1. Is that Amos 3:1, I think. Can two walk together except they be Amos 3:3? Can two walk together except they be agreed? What is it about me that drew them? What is it about me that connected with them? What is it about me that made me want to get intimate with them? What is it about me that made me want to have a relationship with them? What is it about me? Rather than you saying that, you don't take accountability because you focus on your good intentions and your good deeds. And then you don't take accountability, which means that you get stuck. You get stuck in that realm. You get stuck in that way of thinking. So now you start saying you don't want a man. Now you start saying that if you do get a man, he got to be a certain way. Or for the men, you get a passport. You say, let me go to another country and get me a woman. Rather than taking accountability and saying, what is it about me? What did I do wrong? What is it about me that drew these type of people to me? Because accountability will change your perspective. It changes your mind. It changes your life. And then it brings you to a place where now you get the healing. You fix that area so that area can no longer be a door or a window for the enemy to enter into your life through. It's crazy how we'll lock ourselves into a perspective and choose to stay there and throw away the key and deal with that bitterness and that anger for the rest of our lives, thinking that, oh man, and completely miss out on an opportunity to meet somebody who is just like God. And when I say just like God, I'm not saying they're perfect. I'm not saying that they're going to do everything that God does. When I'm saying somebody who has the heart of God, because they're out there. And I tell women this, and it's the same truth for men. The Bible says, he who finds a wife finds a good thing. I tell a good woman, a wife is hidden in God. The same is true for a good man. Good men are out there, but they're hidden in God. And you have to know that. You have to understand it. Because if you don't believe that, you'll never get them. I don't know who needed to hear that. If you don't believe that, you will never have to worry about getting a good man. You'll never have to worry about that. You know why? Because if you think they're all dogs, if you think they're all cheaters, if you think that they're all bad, then what's going to end up happening is God will never send you a good man. God will never send you a godly man while you are locked in that perspective, because that's your world. And you'll get him into that world and you'll turn him into something bad. You will accuse him. You will sit there and say, y'all, all y'all, you'll keep speaking curses over him based on your last season. All right. One nice woman, listen. All right, I'm going to give you 15 characteristics of the spirit of pride. 15 characteristics of the spirit of pride, or the spirit of Leviathan. Number 1, stiff-necked, growing pride. Pride, remember I talked about that snake. It makes your pride grow through offense and through hurt. It makes your pride grow through offense and hurt. And it keeps doing it like it's a repeated attack. It's a repeated attack. It typically likes to attack you in the area that you're passionate about, but it's a repeated attack. It makes you keep growing in your pride so that you can stiffen your neck all the more. You stiffen your neck every time you say, I won't do this anymore. I'm not doing that anymore. Instead of you saying, God, give me the revelation. What should I learn from this? Give me the wisdom. Instead of saying that, you start increasing your pride in an attempt to protect yourself. Number 2, it establishes new self-covenants to break godly covenants. It's a covenant breaker. It's a covenant breaker. So it'll establish. So for example, if I have a friend and she's good and godly and God sent her into my life, right? And I thank God and I'm just grateful. And that the thing about every relationship, there's going to be contention at some point. Every relationship. At some point, there's going to be some problem. At some point, there's going to be offense. At some point, there's going to be something that the person does that you wouldn't ordinarily do, right? At some point, something's going to happen. And in that moment, what the enemy will do is typically he'll send somebody else into your life. And that other person comes in and they start saying, if you're not careful, if you don't talk to the friend that offended you, then you'll talk to the other one, the new one. Let me ask you a question, because, okay, I got this friend and she did this. And then the other person said, girl, I wouldn't have done no stuff like that. I'm not gossiping about her. I'm just trying to get clarity, and you got good intentions behind the conversation. You're just having it with the wrong person. You got good intentions. You're just having it with the wrong person. But it establishes new self-covenants to break godly covenants. So you end up with this covenant with her. Now she's helping you to come out of this godly covenant because now you're over here gossiping or self-covenants, the stuff that you're saying in your head. So now you keep making all these different agreements in your head and you're breaking your covenant You're breaking your covenants because of what's going on in your head, the enemy. And how do I know this? Because I dealt with Leviathan. I dealt with Leviathan. The enemy will make you harden your heart so much. And the objective is whenever you're dealing with that, when you deal with offense and hurt, is a lot of times it will hurt so bad that you never want to feel that again. So you thicken your pride, and those are your walls, right? But you thicken your pride in an attempt to make sure that that never happens to you again. You thicken your pride. You start making all of these covenants and agreements within your heart, within your mind. That's all right. I ain't fooling with her no more. I'm not gonna fool with her like that. I'm not going to do this. I'm not, you know what? I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. You keep making up all these things in your mind rather than going to the Most High God and saying, what should I do? How should I handle this? What should I do? Instead, you start making these self-covenants, and those self-covenants cause you to break godly covenants. It's a covenant-breaking spirit. Go lay down. Go lay down, baby. Okay. Well, you can sit there and stare at me. Number 3, it is a haughty spirit. It brings haughtiness. It brings haughtiness. It makes you lift yourself up. It is arrogant and proud. It is arrogant and proud. It is a haughty spirit. It makes you it causes you to lift up in your heart, right? This is why you see a lot of times somebody ends up getting, let's say, a new house. And then they lift up in their heart or what have you. They go to lift it up in their heart. So now they got a new house. They're not coming to church. They got a new house. They sit back and they getting on Instagram, they getting on Facebook, and they showing off their house or what have you. And a lot of times with it, you'll see, and I'm trying not to, and the reason I'm kind of slowing down on it, because I feel like this is going into my notes. Let me see this. Yeah, it goes into number 15. So I'm moving with the haughtiness. I'm going to move on for that. I think I'll expound better in number 15. Number 4, easily offended. Easily offended. A lot of times that comes from unrealistic expectations. Easily offended. It sets you up where you're easily offended. Where you become super sensitive. Also, let me say this, and this is for the ladies. It's really important for you to understand that there are times of the month where you're easily offended. And during those times of the month, you have to be very careful where you go or who's calling you on the phone. You have to be very careful, because there are times of the month where you can be easily offended or what have you. During menstrual time, men may not understand that, but to the ladies, you know what I'm talking about. But it causes you to be easily offended, super sensitive. I used this example before, whereas I can be, let's say, if we're in a public space, think of church. If I'm over here talking to a girl and we talking and you walk into that space, right? You walk in and I'm over here talking to a girl and I get close and I'm like, girl, PMS, I'm telling you right now, PMS caused you to go, it had you going crazy, right? Girl, I had diarrhea with PMS. You start talking stuff. I have this going on anytime I get PMS. And she said, girl, I be getting hemorrhoids. And y'all over there, that's not something you say out loud, right? That's something that you're going to say close up to each other. So that's stuff that you're talking, what have you. And she says, girl, he gave me hemorrhoids. And then she bucks her eyes at you. You're like, and you walk into that space while I'm talking to her. What do you feel in that moment? You think we're talking about you. That's what Leviathan does. You feel like because we're over there talking. And look, hey, you saw how that looked. That comes from your trauma. So in that moment, you think we're talking about you. Why? Because you got on a new lace front wig, right? You're trying something new today. You decided I'm gonna wear me a wig with some rainbow colors. I'm gonna wear a wig with some rainbow. I'm gonna try something new. You're usually safe, but you try something new. So in that moment, you think people are laughing at you, but no, they were talking about diarrhea, PMS, and hemorrhoids. They standing there talking. That's the reason why they're close. But that's what Leviathan does, is it makes you easily offended, and it's typically behind this fear of communication, fear of saying, "Hey, how you doing? Y'all over here, Chuck, what y'all laughing about?" Rather than doing that, you go. And then you host that offense. You take it home, and then you start talking to folk. I don't like her anyway. I walked up in there, girl, and they gonna stand up, and I know they were talking about me when they actually weren't talking about you. They actually weren't talking about you. The reason I say that, I've had I've had many times where I've talked to people and they've said, you know, I feel like such and such don't like me. I feel like, and I'm like, why do you think that? Or the way she looked at me. People will look at you when they're having a bad day. They'll look at you some type of way. Sometimes it's not personal. Sometimes it's just they got a lot of warfare going on in their head. They got a lot going on in their mind. And not everybody has the emotional flexibility. I don't want to say intelligence, but the emotional flexibility to kind of separate their offense from the moment. So they wear their feelings everywhere they go. They came out of the house, they living with their mom, and their mom cussed them out. Everything went bad at home. And so they come to work and they just like, and you say, hey, you can't take that personal. You got to let them have their moment. And I'm saying the reason that's important is because if you're going to come out in this event called life, you're going to deal with that a lot with people. And you got to have that the emotional flexibility to not internalize that, to not think, did I do something wrong? Did I say something wrong? You have to have the emotional flexibility to say, unless somebody says something to me, that ain't for me. That ain't got nothing to do with me. That got nothing to do with me. But it causes you to be easily offended. Easily offended, where people got to walk on eggshells with you. They're afraid of saying something to you. They're afraid of confronting you, communicating with you. And you know, I've said this before. Don't use the word confrontation, because a lot of times it makes it hard for you to have a conversation when people say meeting. It changes the game, right? It makes it easier to have a conversation with a person, even a hard conversation. You say, I need to have a meeting. When you say confrontation, typically your mind thinks about yelling, shouting, and nobody wants that, right? Especially if you feel like you know the person and you feel like they're not going to take accountability, then it starts seeming like it's going to be a pointless meeting. But if you say meeting, then you understand we're coming with resolve. You got to have that mindset, okay? Number 5, the 5th characteristics of the Leviathan spirit is extreme sadness and depression that leads to more pride. Sadness and depression that leads to more pride. And what I mean by that is you end up sad, depressed, frustrated, and next thing you know, you start making these agreements in your heart. It's all that mulling over your thoughts. I don't like the way that I feel, so therefore, to stop from feeling this again, this is what I'm going to do. To stop from feeling this again, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do. But it's extreme sadness or depression that leads to more pride. Number 6, talking at God and not to him. Telling God what you intend to do rather than asking him for guidance. Talking at God rather than to him. Telling him what you're going to do. You say, God, from this point on, this is what I'm going to do. Rather than saying, Lord, God, guide me through the power of your Holy Spirit. I don't know what to do in this moment. You know why? Because Leviathan will make you idolize your feelings. Leviathan will make you idolize your feelings. Leviathan will make you sit back and idolize that space. It'll make you idolize vengeance. It'll make you idolize, because it's a great feeling when you feel justified. It's a great feeling whenever you feel vindicated. It's a great feeling whenever you feel at peace. It's a horrible feeling whenever you feel in a pit. And so you start trying to fight to avoid that horrible feeling. But it'll make you talk at God and not to him. Is this helping? It'll make you talk at God instead of to him. It'll make you sit there and tell God what you intend to do. Sister Lakita, you're beautiful. Thank you, sis. God bless you. It'll make you tell him what you plan to do, how you going to do it. I'll tell you a good example. Let's say if you go to a church, and you get mad and you say, God sent me to this church, because I've seen this 1,000 times. God sent me here. Then you get mad and you say, I ain't going back. God ain't going back to that church because I went through this and I went through that, and it was a lot on me mentally, emotionally. I got tired of feeling this way. I got tired, rather than you sitting back saying, God, I don't like the way that I feel, but I know you told me to come. So what should I do in this moment? Give me wisdom, give me knowledge, give me understanding. I don't know what to do. And I'll tell you what God will tell you to do. A lot of times he'll say, die. Now, let me make sure I clarify that to those who may be new beginners. That means die to yourself, your flesh. That means those feelings got to die. That you got to get to the space where that stuff no longer hurts you. You got to get to the space where you learn how to cast down imaginations. You got to get to the space where you learn how to have conversations. The objective is to heal and to mature. The objective is to heal and to mature. But instead, you sit back and you start talking at God and telling God what you gonna do and how you gonna do it and what you plan. A lot of times, and then next thing you know, you find yourself at a different church and God didn't tell you to go there, but you figured because I'm at church, I'm still praising God because I'm still doing this, I'm in the will of God. No, you can do godly things and still be outside the will of God. You got to do what God told you to do, how he told you to do, when he told you to do it, where he told you to do it, as opposed to doing what you want to do, how you want to do it, when and where you want to do it because of your feelings. Because of your feelings, you cannot be led by your feelings. God told us not to lean to our own understanding. You cannot be led by your feelings. But you talk at God. You tell God what you're going to do instead of doing what God told you to do, instead of going to him for guidance, instead of saying, God, give me wisdom in this moment. I don't know how to navigate this moment. And let me say this. I know a lot of people that have come out of really, really broken homes, right? I get it. I understand it. I came out of a broken home. The thing about it is, please understand this. You may not know how to navigate. This is for the workplace, any relationships, your church, any place where you have relationships. You may not know how to navigate offense and frustration. You may not know how to navigate it, but you got to sit still and learn it. You can't keep doing what you've been doing and expecting something different. Remember, that's the definition of insanity. You may not, and that's what grace is for. God gives you grace so you can learn. The only way that you're going to learn is if you keep doing what God told you to do, as opposed to doing what your feelings tell you to do. Because if you move according to your feelings, you quit that job because of your feelings, you will lock yourself in that season of revelation. You will lock yourself in that season of offense. You will lock yourself in that season with that conclusion. You will come out of there with that conclusion, and with that conclusion will harden your heart. And the next thing you know, Leviathan becomes your king. The Bible calls him the king of the proud. Number 7, contentiousness. Contentiousness is usually you trying to protect yourself. You become contentious. So, for example, in the workspace, you're giving people a hard time. In the workplace, you're always starting up stuff, but in your mind, you got good intentions. In your mind, you feel like you are making it, trying to keep people from being lazy or what have you, but it makes you contentious. It makes it difficult for people to have a conversation with you. It makes it difficult for people to have any type of resolve with you because you become very contentious. Number 8, unforgiveness. Leviathan is behind unforgiveness, which is a soul tie within itself. But Leviathan is behind unforgiveness. What he does is, again, he locks you into these mental covenants, right? Where you sit back and you say, this is what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do. Forgiveness comes through, I'm going to move in love, even though that goes outside of my understanding. See, moving spiritually does not make sense. It makes you leave common sense to do something blindly that God told you to do and trusting God with the results. It makes you do something blind. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you're going to go and put yourself in the same position so you can get hurt again. You can be mismanaged, mistreated, or what have you. But it stops you from making covenants or agreements in your head with yourself. And it makes you say, God, how should I move in this situation? How should I navigate this situation? Because if you move with God, if you allow him to lead you, then what ends up happening is unforgiveness does not grab you by your knuckles. It doesn't grab you by your ankles. Unforgiveness does not pull you deeper and deeper, because the objective of Leviathan is to take you under and to drown you, to overwhelm you. That's the objective of Leviathan, is to overwhelm you. So the thing about it is, you start making all these agreements, what have you, and those agreements lead you into unforgiveness. It leads you into unforgiveness. And I want to make sure that I speak to those of you, a lot of us, as Christians, because God has shown me many times where I've fallen into the trap of unforgiveness, but I didn't know I was there. This is why you reveal my heart to me. Many times I've fallen into the trap of unforgiveness. I didn't know I was there, because I said I choose to forgive, because I tried to do the things that look like forgiveness, but God had to show me, you're not moving like your heart isn't there. It's the location of your heart. It's got to take you to a different conclusion, because I was still stuck on the same conclusion. And God said, stop putting a period where I put a comma. Stop putting a period where I put a comma, because that's where unforgiveness comes in. Is when you stiffen your neck. This is when Leviathan comes in. It's when you stiffen your neck, when you make a decision, and it don't matter what God said, don't matter what nobody else said. At the end of the day, this is what it is for me. This is what it is for me, because that's how I feel. I didn't like the way I feel, so forget it. And God know my heart. I ain't no bad person. Shoot, if she need a ride to work, I'll take her to work. That's it. But I ain't fooling with her. That's unforgiveness. Unforgiveness will make you say, I'll do good deeds and still keep the evil heart. Forgiveness says, I want to have God's heart toward the person. Even though I got to use wisdom from this point on, I want to have God's heart. God, give me your heart. God, give me your heart. Where was I? Unforgiveness. It leads you into unforgiveness, and it stiffens your neck right there in unforgiveness. Number 9, self-exaltation. Self-exaltation. You can also put in parentheses flossing. That's what Leviathan does. Leviathan does self-exaltation. That's number 15. So I'm gonna move from there. I see number 15. I kind of brought it up in different ways, but it's self-exaltation. It makes you exalt yourself. I can honestly say this too. It'll make you a form of self-exaltation. It'll make you say, she's poor. I don't want to fool with her. She has no benefit. There is no benefit to her. And then you look at your supervisor. Hey, boss, I did that paperwork for you. It makes you esteem people, because it has everything to do with self. Like, I want to be exalted. I want to be seen as big or what have you. And that's not love. Love makes you look and say to everybody, hey, sis, you're beautiful. I love you. I love me some you. How's everything? You good? And, love makes you balanced in your thinking. But what Leviathan does, Leviathan will always make you lift up in your heart, exalt yourself. It'll make you feel like, you know what, the Lord has called you to greatness, and so you can't fool with these peasants. It'll have you with that type of mindset. All right. Number 10, it makes you stubborn or stiff-necked. Nobody can talk to you. Nobody can give you any type of revelation. It's what you say on the highway. Period, point blank, nothing else. Period, point blank, nothing else. It makes you stubborn and stiff-necked. Do me a favor, be sure to like and share. It makes you stubborn and stiff-necked. It makes you stiffen up your neck, and when somebody tries to tell you something, the wall is already up. The wall is already up. You're ready to defend yourself. You're ready to defend your beliefs. You're ready to defend everything, rather than coming to the table with with a soft heart. So, Brother Tommy, God bless you. Thank you. Rather than coming to the table with a soft heart, rather than coming to the table where you say, well, you know what? Let me learn. Let me hear what. And immediately I started thinking about when I first started going to my church. I didn't believe in tithing. I had dealt with it even in a book. I didn't believe in tithing. And I had went to a sonship class my pastor was teaching, and he would start talking about tithing in the class. I don't know why the numbers are dropping real big, but I think it's a glitch in the system, because there's no way it's dropping that big. But right, it makes you unteachable. But I didn't believe in tithing. And I wrote books about it, taught against it, even challenged a couple of folks in there. When I won't say I challenged anybody, because I don't believe in going to people's pages and challenging them. But if I posted up something, I would defend how I believed and what have you. I would teach heavily on it. And while we were in there, and my apostle, he was teaching, I started thinking like, okay, I know that the Lord sent me here, but how's this going to work if I don't believe in it? Like, I don't want to be sitting there saying the confession and lying. I'm like, I'm listening for the numbers that God will put. Like, give me a number, God. Give me a number, God. Give me a number. And that's that. So long story short, I emailed him and I told him I don't believe in tithing. He had said something in the meeting about emailing. I emailed and said, hey, I don't believe it. He said, hey, let's do lunch. And I remember, I knew I was going to lunch. We were going to discuss it. And on my way there, I started praying. I said, God, soften my heart. Like, I don't want to go with the perspective that I'm right, he wrong, and I'm coming there to prove him wrong. I don't want to go with the perspective I'm right, he wrong. I want to prove him wrong. I want to go with an open heart. I want to go, even though I feel I studied, I've written about it, I want to go with an open heart. And it turned out to be a really good conversation. You changed my mind. But I'm saying that to say, Leviathan will make you not have those moments. Instead, you just come to every meeting and everything with your mind made up about something. You got your mind made up. This is how it's gonna be. This is what I'm gonna say, and they ain't got no choice but to listen to me. This is what I feel, and so I feel like I had enough conversations. I had enough meetings. I'd have read enough books. I'd have been to enough conferences. So it is what it is. This is what I think. That's Leviathan. It is the king of the proud. It makes you unteachable, unmovable. You become unrelenting in your way of thinking. And it's really hard to come across somebody like that because there are many cases where your breakthrough is right on the other side of what's in that person's mouth, but you can't get it because you already hardened your heart. All right. Number 11. This is gonna help a lot of y'all. Characteristics of the Leviathan spirit, got four more after this. Overthinking that leads to offense. How many of you can resonate with that? Overthinking, you're intelligent. Because you're intelligent, intelligence and trauma typically leads to overthinking. And when I say overthinking, your mind is inundated with thoughts, like you put together everything rather than building a business, writing a book. A lot of times what happens is when you're offended, your mind locks right there at that offense and you start attaching everything together. This is what Leviathan does. He make you attach this. She didn't speak to me and he didn't speak to me. You know what I think happened? Sister Jade, you're beautiful. Thank you, sis. God bless you. God bless you. You know what I think happened? They had a conversation. That, you know what? It works with Leviathan. I mean, it works with the spirit of rejection as well. They had a conversation about, you know what, I know what it is, because I remember talking to her one day and I told her, and it was nothing messy, nothing, but I told her, I think he has a bunion on his foot because I saw him walking and he looked pigeon toed, but he ain't no ordinarily pigeon toed. Oh, what have you? I think he had a bunion. Now, only reason I brought that up because she was talking about some really, really good shoes. And I said, hey, what about, let's say, Jason, our coworker. Jason, what about Jason? And you know, I think me and Jason cool. So I'm like, I saw him walking bowling. He said his feet were hurting. So I thought maybe he had a bunion. And so she started talking about these shoes. They were like baby shoes, them hard bottom shoes. They supposed to be good. They got adult size baby shoes now. And she was telling me about that. And I was like, oh, how much are they? Where you get them from? And she was like, girl, you don't need them. I'm like, nah, I want to get something for men. You got a man? No, I'm still manless out here in these streets. But like, no, I'm thinking about getting them for Jason. I'm thinking about getting some for Jason because you know he was looking pigeon toed, and I asked him what was happening. He said his feet were hurt, and so I want to get some for him. So overthinking, what happens is you see Jason. Now Jason, what you don't know that's happening with Jason is Jason been fighting with his wife at home. Jason got a whole lot of stuff going on. Jason overwhelmed. Jason dealing with some stuff, right? Jason dealing with some stuff. And the girl that you were talking to, she um PMS and diarrhea. It's just not a good day for her. Both of them are not having a good day. You came out, your day didn't go that well. It didn't start off that well, but you figure when I go to work, you know, I got my people at work. It'll be good. And you see Jason. Jason walks right on by. You like, hey, Jason walks right on by. Mhm. Then you see her. She rushing to the bathroom because she got diarrhea. She on overflow and she running to the bathroom. And you like, hey, so Leviathan will make you stitch that stuff together. Leviathan will make you take those incidents, those events, and be like, all day. Then you go home because you don't like the way you feel. I wasn't talking about him. I was saying I was actually coming from a noble place. I was saying I was gonna get him some shoes because I was gonna get him some grown adult baby shoes because he had a bunion. And I told her, but you know what? I bet she twisted it. You know what? That's exactly what she did. I bet she twisted it. I bet she twisted, which that brings me to the number 16. I need to put a number 16 in there. Okay, I don't know if I wrote this one, but I bet she twisted it. I should have known. She messy. She always, why? Leviathan will make you overthink that. That leads to anxiety. That anxiety can lead to, and that anxiety can be really heavy on your heart, which leads you to a place of, I'm just feeling some type of way. So then you talk to Margaret in HR, and Margaret, Margaret calls you, so she says, "Hey, what's going on? You've been on my mind." You're like, "Girl, just keep me lifted." I told Rebecca about Jason. I was literally just saying, but they're acting funny, and she said, "Really? Yeah, I'm just." So you see, what it does is it leads you into this whirlwind, and it came from you not asking them, "Are you okay?" Or you not just saying, "Okay, humans have their moments." Humans have their moments, and every last one of their moments are not about me. It's not, it has nothing to do with me. It's not that they're mad at me. It's not that they're putting me on punishment. So you have that moment and you end up talking to HR and you do all of that stuff, and you come back the next day, you put your head in the air, all of that. Next thing you know, Jason walks by you, he says, "Hey, how you doing?" Sister Nicole, you're beautiful. Thank you, sis. God bless you. Now hey, he's like, "Man, it's cold out there today, right? It was cold, it was warm. And now you sitting there confused. And you said, "Oh, okay, well, I thought you were mad at me or something." He said, "For what?" The other day, when oh, now I was having a bad day. My wife and I, we be honest, we just weren't in the greatest of spaces. We're dealing with finances and a lot of other stuff. We got into an argument before I came to work. I'm sorry. Overthinking. So now you didn't put yourself in a situation that could come back to bite you in the tail. All right. Overthinking that leads to offense. Overthinking. A lot of you got to get to the point where you learn to take that overthinking and put it somewhere else. Take that overthinking and put it somewhere else. Put it in a book. Create drama-filled Christian books, right? Where people go through the overthinking. Pay attention to what the enemy does to your mind, because that's what he's doing to other people's minds. All right. Number 12, Leviathan makes you have a disdain for the truth. You begin to hate the truth. You know why? Because you have told yourself lies for so long, and you don't want to deal with the guilt or the shame of knowing the truth. So you'll rather harden your heart. You'll rather lift up your heart than to hear the truth. So you refuse to have conversations with people. You refuse to, because you done already went to Margaret from HR. You done already did all of that stuff. And it's going to make you feel bad if they come to you and say, "Girl, no." Because you know what? You'd already created a mess. You're already created a mess, but it makes you have a disdain for the truth. It's like that guy coming home, and remember I gave the example earlier where it's their anniversary, and he goes out and he buys roses and stuff for the wife. The wife has forgot it's their anniversary, and instead of her, she starts realizing in the middle of the conversation. Let's say he didn't tell her he bought her some stuff. He says, and he just stands there and he just listens to her. He said, "Keep talking." And while she's talking, it starts to dawn on her. He's looking a little confident. So she starts kind of thinking while she's talking, and she realizes, "Wait, what's today?" So from that point on, he said, "Let me go to the car." No, 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 don't go to the car. You know what? I'm sorry. I shouldn't have yelled, but you got to talk to me. No, no, let me show you. No, no, no. Why? Because in that moment, she doesn't want to feel the shame. She doesn't want to feel the shame. I can tell you many times, it's always better, honestly, to feel that shame, because the shame is a horrible feeling, but it keeps you from doing the dumb stuff again. Does that make sense? It's not a great feeling. It's not a great feeling, but it lifts if you take accountability. It moves out the way if you take accountability, but it gives you a disdain for the truth. It makes you not want to hear the truth. It makes you not want to hear. I'm thinking about a TikTok video where this lady was saying, she's a nurse, and she said the doctor. She said something about, I don't remember the story, so I don't want to try to tell it, but I just remember to the effect of they were supposed to test this woman for bacteria, That's the first thing before they administer an antibiotic, to kill bacteria. But they supposed, and a doctor came, he was like, "Have you given her an antibiotic yet?" She was like, "No, because we haven't tested her for the bacteria." I mean, he said, "Have you given her an antibiotic yet?" And she said, "No." She said the doctor starts going in on her. He storms out the room or something to that effect. He comes back and he tries to get her in trouble. He tries to turn her into the charge nurse, and she says, "Common sense." At the end of the day, we're supposed to test for bacteria, but we hadn't did the test yet. So antibiotics kill the bacteria and they kill them pretty fast. So I wanted to do the test, and she said the doctor turned red in the face, but he didn't say sorry. That's what Leviathan does. It makes it hard for you to say sorry. Makes it hard for you to sit back in that moment and to feel that moment, because in that moment, that doctor should have sat there and said, "I jumped to conclusions. I'm so sorry. Trust me. I know I look like a butt right now, and I should. Okay, I apologize." But in that moment, she said he didn't apologize. In that moment, instead, what he did was he stormed out of the room. He stormed out of the room. But that's what Leviathan does. It makes you have a disdain for the truth. A disdain for the truth. Number 13, it makes you overly argumentative. Why? Because you're trying to get your point across. And again, you're trying to guard your heart from anything that somebody can say that makes you feel guilty or shame. That makes you feel bad. You try to guard yourself from that. So you become overly argumentative. You become overly argumentative. You just start yelling, and you use voice inflection, or you start using accusation. You find some type of way to try to dominate the conversation. That leads to number 14. You can either be overly argumentative and or be afraid of hard conversations. It will make you either overly argumentative or number 14, afraid of hard conversations. Why? Because in a hard conversation, this is what I tell you. I'm going to tell you, this is what blessed my life. This is what changed my life. I do self-evaluation, and I chase down my thoughts with a why. I'm not saying I do it with every thought. Sometimes I have to, come into remembrance and say, "Oh yeah, you need to chase that thought down." You got to chase it down with but if you don't do self-evaluation, if that's not a normal part of your human process, a lot of times you'll have unrealistic expectations. You'll have thoughts that are not reasonable. And then a lot of times what that does is it makes it hard for you to have conversations because you don't want to be cornered. You don't want to feel cornered. You've already made up your mind. You put a period there, your heart in your heart, and you made up your mind. This is how I feel like we should be doing it. If we're going to be cooking chicken at this restaurant, I feel like we should flip it on the left side first, because the left side is this way. I feel like if you flip it this way, if you use this spatula, you've already locked yourself in your conclusion. You've already locked yourself in. And so consequently, you don't want to hear anything else. So it makes it hard for you to have those hard conversations. And so you come to the table with that hard heart. And so you end up being afraid of hard conversations, because you're afraid that somebody will come and say, and you say, "See, this is what I was telling you. So you flip the chicken like that, you see?" And then they come along and they say, and they get the spatula and they flip the chicken another way. And it starts cooking thoroughly. Like it's no longer just cooking the left side. The way they flip it on its back. And now that breast is under the grease and it's cooking. And they show you a better way. And you don't want to feel that. You don't like that feeling. So rather than trying to learn a better way or trying to do things the right way, you would rather just harden your heart. That's Leviathan. You'd rather just lift up your heart. You'd rather just be prideful in that moment. You'd rather just sit back and just avoid a hard conversation. I'm not having a conversation. There is nothing for us to talk about, period, point blank. That's Leviathan. That's pride. There's nothing for us to talk about. Now, let me say this because I want to make sure I get clarity. And there are cases where you don't need to have a conversation. Every case does not deserve a conversation. I've done that with people on occasions where I've said to people, "No, I'm not going to have a conversation with you. I'm not going to talk to you." Right? Because I already had one with them. I've already had the conversation. I feel like, why are we going to have the same conversation? Like I'm not changing my mind on this, because at the end of the day, this is where you went wrong, and we've already discussed that. Or what have you? And I already know another conversation is just them trying to change my mind all over again. So I've literally put that boundary up and said, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to have that argument. You already made up your mind. This is your position. I made up my mind that this is my position. There's no reason for us to come back to the table unless we're coming back to the table both with an open heart. But since I see that you're not coming with an open heart, you're still just you just found different words to try to hound me with. I'm not doing it. But it makes you afraid of those hard conversations. Number 15, this should have been the last one, but I added one more. Number 15, it gives you, and this is the characteristics of Leviathan. Sister Dale, you're beautiful. Thank you, sis. God bless you. It gives you vengeance-driven success. Thoughts of vengeance-driven success. Everything you do, or a lot of what you does, is backed by vengeance. So think of it this way. You start thinking, I want to get the house, the car. I want to get that contract with this business. I want to get that. And then you know what? They're going to be all up on me then. They're going to be, you know how I'm doing? Hi. That's Leviathan. Anything that's not of love is not of God. That's Leviathan. It makes you think, it makes you take the scripture where God said, I will set a table for you in front of your enemy. I will set, it makes you take that moment and fantasize about it being a moment of vengeance. A moment where you're like, thank you. Oh God. It makes you just sit there and now you're over here doing all of this stuff because everything you're doing is driven by the fact that they rejected me, they didn't like me, they didn't want me, but that's okay. I'm gonna go out here and I'm gonna succeed. I'm gonna do all of this stuff and they're gonna look crazy when it's over with, said and done. And God won't back that. God won't back that because your success is vengeance driven. And I want to say this, and I want every ear on here. Even if you sleep, I need you to wake up. God said vengeance belongs to him. Vengeance is a piece or a part of his glory. It belongs to him. Vengeance, when it's in the hands of God, it gives him glory because it establishes that he is God. If you go throughout the scriptures, when he's rebuking Israel, he talks about all of the things that are going to come upon Israel, that he's going to bring upon Israel because of their hard heart, because of their paganism, their witchcraft, because of their rebellion. He talks about that and he says, and you shall know that I am the Lord. Ye shall know that I am the Lord. Vengeance is a part of his glory. It gives him glory. But when you take vengeance in your own hand, you are stealing his glory because in that moment, you're making it about you and not about him. In that moment, you're making it about you and not about him. In that moment, you're making it. And if it's about you, he doesn't get glorified. People don't get delivered. Nobody gets healed. You just get your moment. You just get your moment. You get the moment where you can say, how do you feel now? What does that do? Nothing. Because that person, what you're saying, you're going to partner with guilt and shame and condemnation, with your spirits. You're going to partner with them. So that moment you are glorified, you are exalted, and they are brought low, and they are humbled, humiliated. And you're like, oh, well, that's what happens. The way that God moves is God will make you have a love that makes you look and feel stupid, which means that everything that you do is not about me exalting myself and lifting myself above other people, but it's about an opportunity for me to demonstrate the love of God. If I didn't receive it, to demonstrate the love of God, and that way I can be a living example. I can be a living example. And you say, well, Tiffany, if I don't teach them a lesson, then what's going to happen? Because if I'm not, because what if I do get success? What if God does bless me? What if God does all that? And they dogged me out. They didn't want to have nothing to do with me. They rejected me. They pushed me away. They did all of that stuff to me. Because you already know they're going to try to be kind. They're going to try to be nice, but it ain't going to be real. But God says that's not your business. Leviathan will make you mind God's business. Leviathan will make you mind God's business. Leviathan will make you sit up there and be like, but what if? But what if God said, what if? What are you worried about? Why are you still trying to protect yourself? Why don't you allow me to be your protector? Why don't you allow me to take that role in your life? What are you afraid? Well, I'm afraid that I'm going to be stupid and I'm going to feel stupid and I'm going to be taken advantage of. That's what I'm afraid of. It's okay to be raw. It's okay to be to be honest and say, I'm afraid of being taken advantage of. I'm afraid that I'll fall into the trap of stupidity. I'm afraid that and God said it won't happen. Stay in my will and I got you. Stay in my will and I got you. You ain't got to worry about that. Number 16, this is the last one. This is the bonus. This is the add-on. And then we'll get ready to wrap things up from here. Leviathan twists the truth. It twists the truth. Leviathan, what Leviathan does is, if I tell you a truth, that could potentially give clarity, anything. Leviathan won't let you take it. The Leviathan will make you keep twisting it to fit your narrative. Or if I'm sitting here and let's say if you're married and your husband comes home, and you sit back and you're telling him something, you're telling the truth, it'll make him twist the truth to justify his behavior. Does that make sense? The Leviathan will make you twist the truth. The Leviathan will make you take the truth and turn it into something not good, rather than allowing the truth to have that moment, to allow the truth to be the truth, and then to separate everything else from that moment. It'll make you mix everything into it and twist it to stir it. So in that moment, hubby comes home and he's late. Maybe he, out doing things he was not supposed to. And I rebuke that in the name of Jesus. We decree and declare that will not happen to you, okay? To my sisters, to my brothers, that won't happen to you, okay? I decree and declare. Just do right by God. Make sure you marry the right one. But Leviathan will make, let's say, for example, you say, where have you been? Why you been out so late? And who you been with? Leviathan will make him give you a measure of truth, a piece of truth. And then Leviathan will mix some lies up in there, some accusations, and mix a whole lot of things up in there. So now it's no longer a conversation about where he's been. And now the conversation is twisted to you. You've been arguing with me. I'm tired of it. Every time you look around, you've been arguing with me. You keep asking me questions. Dude, I'm married. I have your last name. Okay? I have a right to ask you a question because the Bible says, and we're going to go to 1 Corinthians. The Bible says that your body belongs to me. So whatever you do with that body, that's my business. Okay? And since that's my business, I'm asking you a question. It's a simple conversation. If it's an insecurity thing on my part, let's work through that. But let's separate. Now, let's separate me doing this from that. Okay? Let's separate the fact that I didn't fold the clothes last week. Let's separate. We don't need to bring all of that into the equation. Leviathan will make you take everything and put it all into one basket and twist it up to the point where you're in the midst of that conversation where there's confusion. Now, when you see that happening, 9 times out of 10, Jezebel's in the mix as well, because you see remnants of control laced up in there. You see remnants of control laced up in there. Whereas the man you're trying to control, or he's trying to control the narrative, or maybe you're trying to control the narrative. And I also want to say this. It is possible for 2 people to have the Jezebel spirit and link up together. It is possible. Is it a narcissistic spirit? Yes. So no, it's typically guarding narcissism or Jezebel. It's typically one of the guards. And Leviathan's skin gets thicker with every agreement you make. Your heart gets harder with every agreement that you make. So Leviathan starts off as it's pretty easy. It's a baby demon or what have you. When I say a baby demon, demons don't have ages or stages, but I'm talking about in rank. It starts off when it's in your life, it can be relatively weak, which means that somebody can come to you with the truth and you'll humble yourself, right? You may humble yourself. But over the course of time, through trauma, through rejection, through offense, especially if these things are repeated in your life, over the course of time, you keep hardening your heart. Instead of you changing how you think and changing who has access to you, you just harden your heart. Because in your mind, hey, since I got to deal with these people, since I got to date this man, I got to have these friends, I got to have this family. Since I got to deal with these people, I may as well change me. I might as well change on the inside so that they can no longer hurt me. They can no longer hurt me. Right? It's a shield. Instead of you sitting back and saying, okay, let's talk boundaries. Let me heal. This is one of the ways you deal with Leviathan. Let me heal. Let me stop telling them how to manage me. Let me heal. Because once I heal, I'm going to learn to value myself. And if I learn to value myself, then I can sit here and establish proper boundaries. I can give some people that are writing papers, hey, here's a Dear John letter. I can't fool with you. I just can't. And then other people, you can sit back and say, hey, I think I gave you wrong roles in my life. I think I gave you wrong roles in my life. I think I gave you a role that you're not mature enough to host. And that's okay. That's fine. That I'm gonna tell you what, for me, I've literally had that conversation with people. And I said, that has nothing to do with you. That has everything to do with me. So I'm not accusing you. I'm not condemning you. I'm not beating you down. I don't want you to take it that way. I'm literally saying that with me. Now I used to have those conversations. Now I've learned to just basically really take accountability in my head and say, okay, this is on you. This is on you. Because the thing about it is, every relationship has purpose. If God is attached to it, even if God is not attached to it, the enemy is going to bring it in for purpose. Every relationship has purpose. Every last one of your relationships have purpose. And everybody has to have the right position in your life in order for that purpose to be actualized. And if they don't have the right position in your life, that purpose won't be actualized. Instead, it'll be perverted. And what Leviathan does is it makes you demote people, whereas it makes you devote people and exalt people. It makes you put people in the wrong positions in your life. It makes you put people in the wrong positions. A lot of times your voids will do that. Your fears will do that. Your insecurities will do that. Your beliefs will do that. Put people in the wrong positions. And when people have the wrong positions, like if I hire a rapper to paint my walls, crap. What's that you put on my wall? I just asked you, I said, give me a baby blue, which I will not have baby blue walls, okay? Give me a baby blue that's almost kind of like a white. I wanted to have a heavenly glow. But why are there black letters on my wall? My wall looks like graffiti. And it's not even cute. You're not a painter. Because I took a rapper and I gave him a paintbrush. Now, if I turn around and I take a painter and I say, hey, listen, I want you to sing for me. He over here yodeling, but he sounds like he swallowed the frog that I talked about earlier. He just sounds like he's saying ribbit. That's not his position. That's not his role. And so I can either sit back and say, God, give me wisdom. Teach me how to put place the people in my life and to be okay with their roles. Because hear me, a lot of times and I know for myself personally, when I've had voids will make you sit back and put people in the wrong positions. You'll position people according to your need, not according to their call, the assignment that they have in your life. Instead of the assignment they have in your life, you'll put them according to your need. And when you put them according to your need, now you got the your cook. You hire this lady, you say, hey, what are you good at? She says, oh, I want to be your nutritionist. I'm a really good cook. I know you said that you've been having eating problems. You're trying to get right. I believe I can cook delicious meals for you. Give me 3 months. I can cook delicious meals for you that will help you to kind of establish a habit of eating healthy, right? I think the problem is taste and what have you. I've seen this before. I specialize in strongholds as it relates to food. We need people like that. But I specialize in strongholds as it relates to food. So I want to help you. And you take her and you say, hired, but I don't want you to cook. She's like, okay, what do you want me to do? I want you to give me massages. I want you to be my massage therapist. Because you got I'm noticing your hands. They look really good. They look like they. So now she says, oh, I've never done massage therapy before. Oh, it's fine. It's just really just heating up some oil. Now she's a cook. It's just warm up the oil, pour it on my back. You're not gonna get burned. Oh no, I'm a tough one. Okay, heat the oils up and then massage them in. This lady going to the kitchen, get some Crisco, put that thing on 450. She turned that not 450, but she turned that eye on high. She fried. Now you in the emergency room, 30-degree burns. Because that wasn't her role. That wasn't her place. Because for her, now she good at cooking food, but she figured, you know what? You figured, hey, I looked at her hands and she got some pretty big hands for a woman. She got some, and if any of my sisters got big hands, it's fine. I got fat hands, fat, short hands. Okay. But she got some pretty big hands for a woman. She looked like she can massage. She reminded me of the other lady that used to massage me. And that lady used to get deep. I ain't found nobody like her since. Deep. You see how I'm positioning her according to my need and not according to her gift, not according to her grace. I'm positioning her according to my need. So I asked for a massage. Now I'm in an emergency room with 3rd-degree burns. And she fired because I can't trust her no more because she tried to cook me. Now she up in there. Now she need therapy. I need I need medical attention. We all messed up. I'm saying that because that was my problem. That was something that I used to struggle with big time, majorly. And I had, and it had everything to do with a lack of relational intelligence. A lack of relational intelligence, or what have you. A lot of times we have a tendency to do that. So again, when it comes down to Leviathan, where was I? Number 16. It makes you twist the truth. It makes you twist the truth. And like I said, it'll make you put people in the wrong place and then not take accountability for it. Not take accountability. So instead, I'm up in there having a conversation with her with bandages all over my back. And I'm taking the oxygen off. You almost killed me. You're fired. I'm going to make sure you never work again. And she's like, oh my God, I just wanted to cook for you. I just wanted to cook for you. I don't care. Common sense. If it fries chicken, it would have fried me. Get out of here. Then she has shag hands. Oh, listen, go to a corner. Go to a corner. You tried to fry me. You tried to cook me. In that moment, you didn't understand that, hey, this is a moment for less. This is a lesson. This is a learning moment. In that moment, I need to be with the bandages on. And I rebuke that. But in that moment, the bandages on saying, I'm sorry. See, that humbles me. I'm sorry. I really did. I don't want you to feel bad. I gave you a position that you genuinely, and yes, I did get 3rd-degree burns. Yes, it requires a lot of medical attention. Yes, I'm sitting here, and when I get married, we can't do that back thing. We can't do that. I'm careful. But because it will be a pretty sight. But I want to apologize to you. That's how you overcome Leviathan. That's how you overcome Leviathan, by sitting back and saying, okay, let me say it this way. You guys know my story. Marriage I had 2 wedding rings on my finger, right? Okay. I've been married 2 times. Back in my dumb days, back in my foolish days, right? I could blame them. And I can look at the fruit. What ended the relationships? It was definitely them, and they would tell you themselves, right? They would tell you themselves. First one, I'm not gonna go through their crimes or their sins or what have you, but they both were the ones that ended it officially, right? When I say officially, I mean their actions, stuff that they did that was stuff that they knew was wrong. They wouldn't allow it. They wouldn't have been as happy happened to them. It would have destroyed it either way. All of that. But I had accountability in there as well. At the end of the day, the marriages ended because they were never supposed to start. I was too immature to choose a spouse. I was too broken to choose a spouse. I needed healing. I needed deliverance. I needed revelation. I needed a lot. I needed a lot more of Jesus. I didn't have enough Jesus for me to be thinking about marrying nobody, for me to be carrying anybody's last name. I didn't have enough Jesus in me for that. I didn't have enough understanding of who he was. I didn't have enough understanding of who I am. So at the end of the day, I could blame them. I can sit there and say, that man did this, and that, and I'll be giving you facts. I can tell you the other man, he did this, and that, and I'll be giving you facts. But the truth is higher than facts. The truth of the matter is I disobeyed God. Everything that happened to me in those relationships was what I did to God. Everything I reaped in those relationships is exactly what I was doing to God. Exactly. So what that did was I asked God, I said, God, give me forgiveness. I never want to walk into unforgiveness. I never want that. I never want it. And God gave me revelation. I was going through divorce the first time. I told that story before. I woke up in the middle of the night. And this was 5 in the morning. And this was happening to me a lot. It's the middle of the night, 5 in the morning, what have you. I don't know why I remember 5. But I literally had like almost, I'm thinking maybe 2 weeks or something like that, where I literally couldn't sleep. I could not sleep throughout the whole night. I'm waking up because I'm used to having somebody in the bed with me, and all of a sudden now I'm waking up to this cold bed. It's not only an empty bed, but it's cold on that side. And I was waking up, and I wake up in the middle of the night, and I'm crying, and I was in a place of agony. And I woke up and I realized, like, one night I was like, I don't want this. I've been around enough bitter people to understand I don't want to become bitter. Like, that's not cute. I don't want to become one of those women. And I literally sat up on my bed. I remember that because you have moments with God. That's one of my moments with God. I had a moment where I sat up on my bed and I said, God, help me to forgive them. Them meaning the man I was married to and his mistress. I literally asked God, I asked for forgiveness by name. I said, help me to forgive them. Why? Because in that moment, I could draw the conclusion that he did this and he did that. And that's why we broke up. And then I could become bitter. Or I could heal. I could heal. And what God did was he took me on a journey of accountability. He showed me where I idolized that man. He showed me how I went into sin to get that man. He showed me all the fruits and what he did, he brought me to a place of accountability where I can acknowledge what that dude did. But at the end of the day, I can't point fingers at him without 4 more of them pointing back at me. That's how he started my process in healing. But I didn't let the process complete. I was like a lot of you. I felt like I'm in a decent enough space. I got God. I know what I did wrong. So no, the evidence that I didn't understand was the fact that I didn't even allow my divorce to finalize before I got in another relationship. And at the same time, I went into sexual sin. I wasn't ready for a relationship. That's the evidence you're not ready. You go into sexual sin. I wasn't ready for a relationship. I hadn't healed. I hadn't gone through the full length of the healing. I had gone through a process of forgiving. I hadn't allowed myself to go through the full length of the healing. I hadn't allowed myself to go through the full length of the healing. Consequently, catch this, I went back into the same situation with a different dude. This is what creates those cycles that create bitterness. I went back into the same situation with a different dude because I didn't understand that a large part of that had something to do with the way my heart was set up. Not just them. Not just, okay, they did this. I had good intentions. No, the problem was this. And this is going to hit some of you where you need to be hit. I was willing and even trying to be a better wife than I was a daughter to the Most High God. I was willing and trying to be a better wife than I was a daughter. I was more faithful to a man than I was to God. I was more faithful to men. I had my mind made up. Let me make sure that I'm showing loyalty and respect. And let me make sure that I'm the perfect wife. And I forgot I serve a jealous God. I forgot I serve a jealous God. I was so more willing. I was willing, thinking about all the great things I was going to be as a wife. But not once had I ever mulled over, what can I do for God? I'll clean up my house for a man. I go run bubble bath for a man, light candles, have nice conversations, buy nice things, do all these great things. I do all that for a man. But what have I done for God? What have I done for God? So what God did when God started revealing that stuff to me, I had to let those be ouchy moments. Not just ouchy moments. There were moments where I felt like cussing because that pain was so great because God was showing me the error of my ways. And I had to learn to not have more loyalty for a human than I do for God. I can never extend more to a human that's not healthy than I give to God. Because that's the trap, the curse that my family walks in, idolatry. God started walking me out of idolatry. He showed me you need to work on your loyalty to me. Work on your relationship with me. Stop focusing on what I can do to make people, make this man see that I'm a good woman and make him say, wow, Tiffany, great girl, great woman. Because you know what? I got that. I don't know who needs to hear that. I got that. Both times I was married, I am so happy. Man, I love this marriage thing. I have no complaints about you. Even years into it, I really have no complaints about you. But I was wondering with the complaints in my heart. You know why? Because I was being a great woman, but a lousy daughter. And part of my healing, a large part of my healing, was me taking accountability for that and understanding that I reap with them what I sowed into God. I reaped what I sowed into God. What I got out of them is what I sold into God. That unfaithfulness, I'll be back. God, gaslighting, playing love bombing, God, I love you, all of that. But then, okay, but let me go over here. I got my man. Let me go over here and make sure my man is good. Let me make sure he happy. Let me make sure he gets what he needs. Make sure he gets what he wants. Let me make sure that I'm trying to be the perfect wife to him. And God's like, didn't see you last night in prayer. Mm. What about forgiveness? Well, God, you gotta understand what he did to me. What about what you did to me? That's different. Oh, so you greater than me? You you that he sinned more against you than you have against me? But God, that's different. I got my deliverance from Leviathan through me sitting back and allowing God to let me feel those feelings that I tried to avoid. And I still hate those feelings to this day. I don't like them at the end of the day. But I've learned to allow myself to marinate in the truth. That way I can get my freedom rather than me sitting up there protecting and shielding myself with lies and with my own things. I can sit there in that truth. Because let me tell you this, and I'm gonna get ready to close behind this. Everything you pray for, every change, every blessing, every ounce of deliverance is hidden, is locked behind you going through those bad feelings that you don't like. It's locked behind you humbling yourself. It's locked behind you taking accountability. It's locked behind you sitting back saying, I forgive. I choose to forgive. And rather than saying, this is how I'm going to treat her from this point on, saying, Lord, teach me how. Teach me how to treat her. And God will tell you a lot of times to do some stuff that don't make sense to you. I want you to hug her, and I want you to just sit up there and tell her, say, hey, you are the most beautiful sister in the whole wide world. And I thank God for you. And all of that. And you know what? What I'm gonna do for you? I'm gonna buy you a pair of roller skates. I don't know. That right there for I don't want you to acknowledge that feeling that you feel as I'm saying that. Because I want you to think about somebody that really hurt you. Now think about doing something nice for that person. You see that feeling that you feel? That's Leviathan. If you feel that, that's pride. Not gonna say Leviathan, but it's pride. Leviathan is the king of the proud. That feeling, okay. Going back into this, because I want to make sure I make it make sense. Going back into this, I told this story before. I was married and my ex got into an argument. He went slept in the other room. I slept in my room. Okay. Both of us, we were both dealing with Leviathan. Leviathan had us a covenant breaking, you name it. Leviathan is behind divorce, if you don't know. So one day I get up and I'm an atmosphere person. It is hard for me to sit in a toxic atmosphere. It's hard for me to sit where there's contention. I've been like this since I was a kid. I always had to escape. I always would get up and escape, get out that space, right? So I get up. The next day, he's still up in the room. The atmosphere does not feel good. I gotta go. So I get up and I decide I'm gonna go to Office. Is Office Depot? I think it was Office Depot. And I was living in Florida at the time. I'm gonna go to Office Depot. I go up in there and I'm praying because I know God and I love God. I'm still kind of young in the faith, but I'm praying. I get up in the store and I go over there and I'm looking at CDs. Like I'm literally just in there. I don't think I had any intention to buy anything. If I came across something I wanted, I knew I was gonna buy it. But it was more so I just wanted to get out the house. I just wanted to go somewhere and get a little retail therapy, even if it was just window shopping. And I go over there and I see this CD. And I'm showing you how God dealt with Leviathan in my life. I'm looking through the CDs and my eyes lock on this CD. It says, teach you how to type. Now, I type fast. I'm a pretty good typer. God says, and all of a sudden I have this memory. God brings to mind, my ex said, I wish I could type like you. I want to learn how to type like you. And God says, get that CD for your husband. This is how he deals with your pride. He said, get that CD for your husband. Nay. I literally told the Lord, no. I told the Lord no. I said, not the way he been acting, not the way, because at the end of the day, he wrong. Because I was focusing on the fact that I was right, he was wrong. All of my good intentions, all of this started because him not wanting to be defensive of his marriage, letting folks, say all kinds of crazy stuff. I think that's what the fight was about. The majority of my fights with this dude was about his interfering relative. Like 95% of our arguments were about her. So I'm just sitting there like, in the store, I literally walk off. That's how strong that spirit was. When you get to the point where you can disobey God, you got a strong Leviathan. I can understand people talking to you. But when you literally harden and stiffen your neck against God, that spirit is growing in strength. I walked away from that aisle, literally hear God in my head. I hear him in my heart, not my head. But I walk away and I start looking at other stuff, but I literally can't focus on this other stuff because I still hear God. Because God, he doesn't say it again. His voice just keeps echoing. And in a hard heart, it is released when you do what he told you to do. It just echoes in that hard heart. Get that CD. I'm like, no, because, and I go into my justification. Because I don't want to reward his behavior. I don't want him to think that what he did was good. I don't want him to think this. The Lord said, get that CD. I keep hearing it. I'm shopping around. Get the CD. Get the CD. Get the CD. Finally, I decide, let me go back over there. I'm just going to look. Let me just go back over there. So I go back over there. I look at the CD again. I decide, let me obey God. Because I think I had a few things in my cart. I grabbed the CD. Catch this. I grabbed the CD. Because both of us, me and him, both had Leviathan spirits. I get the CD, I put it in my basket. The feeling that I'm getting in that moment, I hated it. Oh, God. Oh, it was a horrible feeling. That pride feels nasty when it starts to break. It don't just feel bad, it feels nasty. It is a nasty feeling. So I'm sitting there, I go to the counter. I start ignoring my emotions because that's a real thing. Sometimes you got to ignore your emotions to do what God told you to do. Don't pay attention to your emotions. They got their voice. Don't pay attention to them. This is how you obey God. I go over there. I buy the CD. I go home. Remember, he's in this other room, right? He done locked himself in the other room. He don't want to hear nothing I got to say. I don't want to hear nothing he got to say. Literally, I don't want to end the fight. I want the atmosphere to get better, but I feel like I'm right. That was it. I'm right, he wrong. So I go and I go in the house and I'm following the voice of the Lord. He's in the room. He didn't lock the door. I knock on the door. What? I feel that spirit rising up in me again. Like, why are you doing this? You know how to handle him. What? I said, I bought you something. Do you have a gun? I said, what? Do I have a gun? Why would I have a gun? He's been watching too much TV. He was an American guy. He thought American women, when they got mad, we were going to shoot him. I said, why would I have a, he said, do you have a gun, Tiffany? Why would I have a gun? Could you open the door? He said, what? I said, open the door. What do you have? I said, open the door. The whole time, I feel pride in my heart. See, God, this is why I want to do this. I know how this dude is. I know how stubborn he is. I don't feel like one thing. Now, my African brothers and sisters on here will tell you, especially my African sisters, they will tell you African men, not the entirety of African men, but in Africa, not the entire continent, but pride is a big thing in Africa. African men tend to be very lifted up in there. There's a whole other level of pride. A whole other level of pride, especially as it relates to women. You are wrong because you are the woman. You are wrong. But I'm standing there. I said, open the door. Do you have a gun? I do not have a gun. Could you open the door, please? I bought you something. He cracks the door just a little bit. He says, what? He says, what? He said, what did you buy? And I put the CD. So I'm talking about he barely opened the door. Then, what is this? I said, it's a CD to teach you how to type. He closes the door back right there in my face. He just closes the door. He said, why did you? I said, the Lord told me to buy you that. Then I hear him, he says, how much did it cost? I said, that's not important. How much did it cost? I said, it was $20. I will give you your money back. I said, I don't want the money back. I didn't ask for money back. The whole time that's happening, do you know what I'm feeling? Because Leviathan messes with your feelings. The whole time that's happening, I'm feeling like, see, God, you asking me to do this. This is what it's doing. Because now he think he right. Now he think he winning. It makes you get caught up in the winning, losing thing, not understanding that both of y'all got to lose in order for God to win. Because he is strong when you are weak. In that moment, I'm just sitting there thinking about winning. I want to win the fight. I want to win the argument. I want to prove that I'm right and he's wrong. I want to prove that I'm right and he's wrong. And God had to tell me in that moment, he said, I had to ignore those feelings. And I'm telling you, they were icky. They were icky. And I went to sit down and those thoughts kept coming. I had to fight those thoughts. I sat down at my computer and I go back to working, but I'm having to fight those thoughts. But you know what? The atmosphere started to break. It started breaking for me. The atmosphere started to shift. It started to change. And I'm typing. Next thing you know, I see him, the bedroom door open. He come out of there carrying his pillow and walking back into our bedroom. He came out of there because in that moment, God was like, you're going to have to fix this. Well, I want to fix it with this stiff neck, bubble headed. That was my thought. Like, why would I want to fix it with him? Why would I want to fix it? Remember this. For those of you who are married and those who desire to be married, Leviathan is a covenant breaking spirit. It will always destroy your marriage from the inside out, whether it destroys it where y'all divorce or it destroys it to the point where y'all can't stand each other. It is a covenant breaking spirit. It makes you protect yourself at the expense of your spouse. It makes you sit there and think about your feelings, and your spouse ends up feeling exposed, unprotected. And because they start feeling like that, they start defending themselves. It is a covenant breaking spirit. It is the spirit behind divorce and divisiveness. It is the spirit behind discord. It is the spirit behind disunity. It will always get you to exalt yourself, to protect yourself, to shield yourself, rather than sitting back and saying, what can I do differently? How can I help you? Rather than saying, I don't like this. And then understanding that you can have a whole conversation, because this needs to be said, and I think most women have to hear this. You can have a conversation where you can give a dude logic and emotion. You can give him wisdom and evidence, and he still stiffens his heart. What he does with you is what he does with God. The reason I say that is because women have a tendency we have a tendency to think about things. We'll go and sit there and think about it. We'll think about a conversation before we have it. We'll think about all the facts. We'll think about all the things that we're going to bring to the table. And we typically imagine that once we bring all the evidence to the table, that the conversation will rule in our favor, that you'll humble yourself to the dudes, that you'll humble yourself and say, I didn't know all that. Well, I'm sorry. And you say, well, I'm sorry too, baby. And then we'll reconcile on that. And, we'll go out to eat and we'll have a great night, right? Women tend to fantasize like that. And that's what creates a big argument. The big argument, it isn't just in the fact to the guys that you didn't agree. It's in the fact that she had that fantasy, which means she had good intentions, which means that she had excitement. Her hopes were up. Her hopes were up, but her hope deferred makes the heart sick in that moment. Her heart is sick in that moment because she had her hopes up thinking that the conversation was going to end one way. It was going to end with y'all reconciling and then y'all going and doing something lovely. And then the night was going to end with a little bit of champagne and a whole lot of sex. And then instead it ends with the conversation not going in that direction. It ends with the man lifting up his heart and feeling like he's about to be controlled, because that's a lot of times with men. And y'all can tell me if I'm wrong. Men typically try to protect themselves from what they feel like is control. They try to protect themselves, so they see conversations as you trying to control me. So a lot of times a man comes to the table, not all men, but a lot of men come to the table already made up their mind, stiff-hearted. What we got to talk about? What we got to talk about? Leviathan will give you those fantasies of how that conversation is going to go, because Leviathan knows that once he comes to the table, he's probably going to be stiff-necked. Or in some cases, let me say this, because some ladies need to hear this. He may come to the table with a truth that you're not willing to hear. He may come to the truth he may come to the table with a truth that you're not willing to hear. And consequently, that's going to start a fight. That's going to start a fight. And when you start fighting, that divisiveness makes you divide with, again, covenant breaking spirit, because then you start shielding and protecting yourself. You start shielding and protecting yourself, which leads the other person to start shielding and protecting themselves. And so consequently, everybody's walking around protecting themselves. Everybody walking around shielding themselves instead of sitting down and saying, all right, we ain't going to like this conversation. We're not going to like it. Or prayerfully we will. But let's talk. And one way in a conversation, there has to be accountability. I just gave it to you. There has to be accountability. I'm sorry. Literally, no accountability typically leads to a person shielding themselves. If you come to the table and you say, you wrong, you wrong, you wrong, you wrong, you wrong, you wrong. The other person goes, okay. Well, what about what you did wrong? Nobody's taking accountability. You literally meet in the middle. You literally meet in that place where you sit back and say, I'm not going to shield myself from you. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk. We're married or you're dating, whatever type of relationship you got. I'm going to talk to you and I'm going to listen to you and I'm going to try to empathize. And if I can't empathize in this moment, if it's something you're passionate about and I don't understand, rather than me hardening my heart, I want to make sure I get wise counsel so I can try to empathize, so I can see it from your perspective. Because what I don't want to do is I don't want to lock and load on my own perspective at the expense of yours. The objective is to get Leviathan into a dry place. The objective is to take Leviathan, because he's a marine spirit, he lives beneath the surface, but to bring him up out of the water so he can start suffocating. The objective is to sit there and say, you know what, this is where I stand. But you know what, I'm going to give you the ability. And I'm saying this because I've seen this too many times. Some of y'all don't allow people to talk. It's just, and this right here, this is an indicator that you harden your heart. Why they're talking? Yeah. You see all that movement? That means you're not listening. You're not willing to hear. That means it's a game of double dutch. I'm ready to tell you, because at the end of the day, I'm trying to win. You never win. We win. You will never win. In covenant, you never win. It's we. And if it ever becomes you and me, it's done. Leviathan is a covenant breaker. He destroys the we. So it becomes you against him, or you against her, y'all against each other. The Leviathan separates the we. And then he wraps himself around that person's heart. He causes hardness of heart. He creates that split. Can two walk together except they be agreed? He creates that split. And once that's done, you literally win, but your prize is in God. The prize that you get is you proved your point. You exalted yourself. You got your moment of vengeance. But remember, what is vengeance? It is a piece of God's glory. You stole a moment from God. You stole an opportunity from God. You stole that moment from God so that you could exalt yourself. You stole that from God so that you could win. But you don't win. We win. Can you focus on yourself and be in a relationship? No. Anytime covenant comes in, there's no longer you and me. It's always we. Because everybody has a perspective. Everybody has. And the thing about we is that sometimes you will have to allow me to have what I need or what I want. And sometimes I have to allow you to have what you need or what you want. Covenants become destructive, broken, or even toxic when it becomes me what I want, and everybody, you got to just give me what I want. You just got to give me what I want. That's it. You got to give me what I want, and that's the only way. It is my way or the highway. That right there is me. And when there's me, there's no us. When there's no us, there's no we. Sister Shannon, you're beautiful. Thank you. God bless you. God bless you. There's no we. So anytime you're establishing a covenant, you got to make sure that, because remember, Leviathan is a covenant breaking spirit. You got to make sure that your heart is healthy. You cannot have covenant relationships with an unhealthy heart. You will always be destructive in them. Now, I'm not saying, because I understand that a lot of you dealt with unhealthy hearts. What have you have one? You're struggling with it. I get it. But if your heart is not healthy, when you're going into a covenant relationship, don't throw yourself into the deep. Don't throw yourself into the deep. You have to take baby steps. You have to go to that, and you have to kind of grow into that. You got to heal into that. You got to heal into that. So I'm saying, don't get into a relationship and start calling him boo. Don't get into a relationship and start talking about this my wife. Don't do that. Y'all barely know each other. You got to walk. You have to go through your process, right? You got to take. And he says, hey, I'm thinking I'd like to take it to the next level. Let me be honest with you. I'm not there yet. Like, I really like you and I love to take it to the next level, but I don't know if I'm healed enough for that. I'm in therapy. I'm trying to go through the healing. I'm trying to go through all the processes, what have you, but I don't want to give you damaged goods. I don't want to give you damaged goods. I don't want to give you something that could potentially break you. I've gone through it, and he may say, hey, well, what can I do to aid you in that process? Give me space, 1, 2, and you got to know what you need. You got to know what you need. 2, let me know when I'm off, because I may not necessarily know it. See, because off to me looks normal. It's looked normal for years. So if I do something that seems to be a little bit off-putting to you, let me know, but also give me the space to kind of understand and ask questions. Don't just shut me down and tell me I'm off and that's it. Right? Because I need that space. So give me that grace. Give me that space, because God said, above all I get understanding. I need to get understanding. Give me that space. I answer those the few questions I see in a minute. But I'm saying that to say, covenant relationships have to be about God, number one. We always meet up at God. They always have to be at God. When it ceases to be, I'm married to him, or he's married to me, or friendship, God, any covenant relationship, when it becomes me, their problem comes in. That's when an issue comes in, because you can never divide it and make it. You can never become that imbalance or what have you. Let me see. I saw a question. What if the other person is like that? What if they say what they say is always right, no matter what they say they are right? What do you do to the other person then? Separate. Sister Candy, you're awesome. Thank you. God bless you. Unless you're married to him. Unless you're married to him. If it's a friend, if a person is like that, they're not healed enough to be in a covenant. They're not healed enough to be in a covenant. They're not mature enough to be in a covenant. And so in a case like that, even if you say, God, this is my friend, God brought her into my life to be a friend, we can't be close friends. We can't be best friends. We have to be distant. At this point, she's still my sister in Christ, because there are expectations that come with the title of friend. And so I can't put her in a position where I'm going to be dealing with repeated disappointment. So you have to let them know. I believe in communication. Like, you have to let them know where you stand, what you feel. But at the same time, give them the space to grow. Give them the space to grow. Notify them. What I've learned, and this is something I want to do, what I've learned, because I've come out of a lot of brokenness, is that a lot of times we don't know. People don't know. We don't know. Like, for me, over the course of my life, I've always, if I did something wrong, I just didn't know. I just didn't know. It was never vindictive. It was, most of the time, I didn't know. A lot of my growth, a lot of my healing came through me having conversations, through, friends saying, hey, Tiffany, that ain't like that. You did this. And I'm like, well, I don't understand what you're talking about. Like, I did this or what have you. But it came through me having conversations. I always think about that one moment at the age of 17 years old, because it's a moment of growth. You will always remember your moments of growth. And I've told this story before. I had this boyfriend, first dude I had actually given my heart to. And he asked me to go sit in the car, and it was cold outside. We go and he opened the door for me. I get in the car. My first thought, because I didn't know, my first thought was flip down the mirror. That's it. He was over there struggling with his key to get in the car. And I'm thinking he already got the same key open. He just gonna go over there. My brain did not think or unlock the door for him. My brain did not go there. My brain thought straight, okay, let me make sure I'm looking good. So I flipped the mirror down while he over there struggling with his key. And I'm over there looking at myself in the mirror, trying to make sure, my hair is right or what have you. I used to wear my hair short, little. So I'm over there just kind of doing all this with my hair. And he gets into the car and he immediately starts going through a benediction of breaking up. Now, mind you, at this particular time, I don't think I ever had anybody break up with me before. I didn't know how to handle that. I didn't know how to deal with that. Like, what? He said, my mom always told me that if you can open the door for a woman and the woman don't open the door for you, that's not the woman for you. And in that moment, I literally had a wow, that's right. That's actually true. Like and it was one of those moments where I literally didn't think to do that. I genuinely didn't think to do that. I wasn't exalting myself, thinking you should open the door for me. I wasn't thinking like that. Nobody ever taught me that. And so I apologized to him. I said, I apologize. I didn't know that nobody ever told me that. Like I've never learned that in my life. So I understand. And he was like, all right, we talked about it and we reconciled. We reconciled for however long, but we reconciled. But I told him, I said, if I do something, let me know. I genuinely don't know. I genuinely don't know. Well, the reason I'm saying that is you have to let people know. What if they get into the relationship thinking that during the breakup you'll leave? What do you mean? You're already broken up. During the break you'll leave. What if they get into it? Ask that question again. I don't necessarily understand the question. I'm gonna do those two questions and I'm gonna get out of here. Right. That really changed. It changed my life. From that point on, I never did that again. So from that point on, when a man opened the door for me, which is what requirement of mine as a young lady, because it was weird. Like if a dude didn't try to open the door, especially trying to date you. But from that point on, I would lean and open the door. If it was no unlock feature at that stage, I think that unlock feature still was kind of new. Most people still had the car where you had to pull the thing up or what have you. And from that point on, I learned to just lean over and open people's door. Is exes hitting you up out of nowhere a sign that your husband is near? No. It's just a sign that the enemy wants you back. That's all. It's a return of the unclean spirit. No, it's not a sign. It can be, but most of the times it's not a sign. I think we over religify it, and it makes us feel good, But if that was the case, I'll tell you right now, I'd be married a long time ago because it's not unusual for me to get a friend request from an ex. I got some of them still in pending, or to get inboxes from an ex, like "What's up, big head?" or "Hey, the woman I should have married," all that stuff. I get that kind of stuff all the time, and I don't think anything of it. I honestly, it's annoying to me because it's just more so somebody that men territorial. Period. So I don't think of it that he finally see the light of day. No, I think of it as somebody that wants to try to see if he can get me back or what have you, or see something going good in my life. Would there be a part 2 on how to dismantle Leviathan? I'll talk about that shortly. Do you have a group of therapy sessions? I really resorted with the parts about fantasies which you spoke on, and I'm trying to dismantle it. I have the Esther Prep University, and we do questions and answers in there. From time to time, we got a message board or what have you. So definitely, I would say join Esther Prep University. All right, I'm not going back to anyone. True. Okay, like if y'all took a break saying you'll wait for each other because you're not ready right now, but then said, okay, it scrolled down. Let me go back up. But then it said, let's get in the relationship because they're scared you'll leave during the break. I'm trying to make sure I understand it, but for the most part, if somebody said, hey, let's take a break, I don't necessarily think we're ready. But now let's get back in a relationship because I'm afraid that you'll kind of walk away. My question would be, is the issue resolved? Because then there's a mechanism of fear of rejection. And a lot of times what that centers around is I don't want to change. If I don't want to lose you, I want to hold on to you. And hopefully you'll get the message, you'll get the memo, and you'll change. So context, I will have to have context with it. But if y'all, it depends on who broke up with who and why and what the motive is. If the motive is that, hey, I don't think we're mature, then I can understand that. But in order to mature, you would have to have that space between y'all, because there's no sense in breaking up if we still gonna be talking on the phone and hanging out, right? There's no sense in breaking up. But if the objective of it is because we had a hard conversation or I didn't agree, then that's more so the person putting you on punishment, and that definitely would be Leviathan, the person putting you on punishment to get you to give in, or what have you, or robbing you of a title, robbing you of this so that they can extract a benefit. Okay, let me get back to this. Give me a second. We're going to talk about how to dismantle Leviathan shortly. I didn't write any notes on that, but I can go straight through it. Okay, I know I saw something. Give me a second. Oh, no, I meant like I've seen women say they ignore their exes and that's when their husbands popped up. Yeah, typically your husband will pop up in due season. But when it comes down to exes, I've been ignoring exes for years. I've been ignoring exes for years, and there's still been no popping. No, so I don't think when it comes down to it, I think there are cases when it happens, but I think a lot of times when you're in the middle of a wait and you see that rush, like you have, because typically you have that moment where it looks like a lot of exes coming, like a flood of exes or what have you. It's just a return of the unclean spirit. Why the unclean spirit is returning is a mystery. It could be that the enemy has something up his sleeve. It could be something that it could be a demonic contract that's coming to an end, what have you. But there's usually a reason if you start getting inundated with exes. But for the most part, it usually doesn't signify. It's like, because the reason I want to say it that way, I want to make sure, because I don't want anybody to think that, oh, dang, I think my husband's around the corner because I got contacted by 3 exes last week. Doesn't mean that their husband is around the corner. It can mean that an unclean spirit is trying to reattach to their lives. Their husband can be 7 years down the road, but the unclean spirit can be trying to attach because of something that's happening in the realm of the spirit that they're unaware of. Or and it doesn't have to be an event that's taking place. Sometimes the unclean spirit is just, the Bible says when the unclean spirit goes out of a man, it goes to dry places seeking rest, but find it. And it says, I will go back to the place from whence I came. That shows some distance between the person and the unclean spirit. But that's not physical distance. Please understand that it's a spirit. Now, spirits are not omnipresent, but really what it is thought. It's thought. So when it goes back looking, it's looking for an open door in your thoughts, in your mind, in your way of thinking, your way of reasoning. When it goes looking, when it comes back and it's looking for you, it's looking for a belief that it can use to get back into your life. It's looking for a belief that it can utilize to get back into your life. Let's say, for example, you say, I don't believe that it's a sin fornication. I think it's the Christians are twisted the scripture. People say that kind of stuff when they refuse to get delivered. They refuse to get healed. So that spirit, it can find you. You agree financially with God, like you tithe, you do all that, but over here, as it relates to your body, you don't agree with God, and the enemy will use that as a way to get back into your life. It will use it as a way to get back into your life. So when it goes looking for you, or when Satan goes about seeking whom he may devour, he's not like an invisible demon walking around in the marketplace and there's a lot of people and he's looking like, No, literally. And this will bless somebody's life. He's looking for people who've been reduced to a crust of bread. He's looking for whom he can devour. The Bible talks about the man being reduced to a crust of bread through fornication, right? She reduces him to a crust of bread, but he's looking for men and women who are outside the will of God. That's what he's doing. So, and outside the will of God, it's not a physical thing. He's looking for your way of thinking, reasoning. He's looking for the way of reasoning. How does he do it? I think about how a seductress hunts. A seductress, not a seductive. How a seductress hunts. A seductress can see that a man is twisted in his thinking, perverted in his thinking, based on the dance of his eyes. So If he's walking around, a man who is locked and loaded, he goes into the marketplace, he's shopping, and he ain't looking around. The seductress knows that's too hard. It's like somebody trying to kidnap. It's just too much of a headache. It's not worth it. I'm not about to get shamed, rejected, none of that. But you got that man over there he's over here. He's looking at the apples. Looking at the apples. And he look over. You see that moving in eyes? That right there tells that spirit in her. He's accessible. He's accessible because he can't stay focused. He can't stay focused. That spirit knows if a woman is walking by, and let's say a woman is standing over there and she's looking at some apples and stuff. She happens to look up at the man. He don't see her, but he's looking at a couple other women passing by. And he does this right here. And then as they're passing by, she notices that he waits till they pass by. And then he kind of looks, meaning he about to look at their butt. That spirit, what he just did was that spirit sees its reflection in him. That spirit sees that he's got lust. He's got lust. So that spirit is going about seeking whom it may devour. That means a person who's already been reduced, somebody who's already outside the will of God. He doesn't have to be kidnapped because he'll willfully go with the enemy. He'll willfully go with the enemy. So that spirit and that seductress over there can walk over there to him, and then she can go over there and she can shop around the fruits around him, and he's gonna be like, and whoops, dropping fruit on the ground. Oh my gosh. That's what that spirit does. So when you start dealing with exes that are trying to look or what have you, typically it's a return of the unclean spirit. The unclean spirit is trying to see if it can find place. The Bible says, give no opportunity, give no space to the devil. That unclean spirit is trying to see if it can find space in your heart. It's trying to see if it can find an opportunity or what have you. I'm going to answer the last one. And I'm going to go, I see these. Okay. Not going to do a question and answer, guys. I'm going to do a few more and then I'm going to let y'all go. What if you pray for someone to be removed from your life, but they haven't been? Does that mean they're for you? Nope. It means you haven't changed your mind. It means you haven't changed your mind. Now, praying for somebody to leave your life doesn't always work. I got a sister in Christ, and I tried to pray her out plenty of times. I got mad at that girl, and Lord, remove. And I've done that with people in my life. I've been like, God, I don't think this is your will. And then God will sit back and he'll rebuke me. He'll deal with me or what have you. Because, in that case, it's covenant. In that case, God brought that person into your life, and not just for sometimes it's to reveal you, so he can heal or deliver, do whatever he wants to do to both of y'all, whatever. Long story short, what was the question again? Oh, what if you pray for somebody to be removed from your life, but they haven't been? Does that mean they're for you? No. When you ask for somebody to be removed, you're typically thinking physical removal. Amos 3:3, can they walk together except they be agreed? I think the better thing for me to talk about was when I was married. After I got married, after we moved in together, after we moved to the States, I literally panicked. This is the second time I got married. I panicked. I literally went into a panic. One day I just looked at this man and I started panicking. I realized, dang it, I think I messed up. Oh, I didn't want a second divorce. I never wanted to be a woman who had one divorce. And I had a moment where I literally realized this ain't gonna work. I had that moment and I started panicking. And because I saw that he really, me marrying him, knowing that he wasn't saved, I was broken and thinking that I could change him. And at that moment, I had a clarity moment. Like God cut the lights on and like, you ain't gonna change him. This is what you got. And all of a sudden, I was no longer married to who I wanted him to be. I realized I'd married what I did, the opposite of that. So I literally started panicking. When I say I started panicking, I was panicking. And I started praying and I started trying to repent. And I said, God, remove this man. I'm sorry. I don't want him. I'm sorry. God, you said you'll give me a way of escape. Give me a way of escape. I tried to get out of there. I felt like I was suffocating. And God wouldn't let me out. I've told this story before. I called my mom, and one of her coworkers was going to be passing through Florida. I was like, ask her to come pick me up. Ask her to come pick me up. I packed my bags, everything. I wasn't advertising to him that I planned to leave because, you know, when you advertise to a person that you plan to leave, you really don't want to leave. You're trying to manipulate them. I didn't advertise. I really wanted out. I wanted to escape, and it didn't work. Nothing worked. Every door that I had that looked to be open, I couldn't climb out. I couldn't. Nothing I could do. And I was panicking. I was repenting. I was like, God, I'm sorry. I did it again. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I'm sorry. And what God did was He said, I need you to die to yourself. I had to die my way out of that relationship. I couldn't leave it. Because I would have left it with the same way of thinking that got me into the predicament. So that would have been me not taking accountability, me not realizing that there were lessons in there because God will use all of that stuff, right? All things work together, even the things you do wrong, they work together for God's glory. In that moment, I wanted out. God said, no, I want you to experience what you chose. I want you to experience this. I want you to go through the experience. Me, I saw ahead. I saw what that experience was going to look like. I saw torment. I just got out of that. I saw torment, agony, crying. I saw all of that. And I tried to escape. I'm grateful now. I wasn't grateful then. I'm grateful now that God allowed me to go through the experience because in that experience, I got revealed as well. In that experience, see the enemy, that spirit that I was hosting, realized in that moment that they were about to be exposed. Because in that moment, God, He literally showed me through that man. And I didn't like what I saw. Because when you're married, your spouse is a reflection of you. And we have a tendency to try to break the mirror. And that was my thing. So I've learned that when God is trying to pull you out of something, He's saying come out of agreement, not with the person, with the spirit that led you into it. Because if not, that spirit is still there. So you'll attract the same demon in a different person. So one thing about it is rather than closing doors, you just have to change your mind. You just have to change your mind. You don't say, well, I'm not going to talk to her on the phone. I'm going to avoid her phone calls. I'm going to do that. Nah, those are mental aerobics. Basically, what you do is you say, what connected me to this man? Or what connected me to this woman? What thought, what belief connected us together? You may find maybe it was gossip, maybe it was rejection. What is it? And then you get healed in that area. If you get healed, automatically the relationship severs if God wants it to sever. Or the person may get healed themselves. I have a question. I am being shown a lot of famous celebrities in my life, and I'm being shown deception. Can you make a video on how media celebrities affect our lives? What spirits they operate under? I'll tell you this. The reason you don't see me doing those type of videos is because now if I see somebody do something crazy, like it really affects somebody in Christ, I may talk about it. But the reason I don't do that is because God never wants us to get caught up looking externally. He always says, start with the plank in your own eye. Start with the speck in your own eye. It always starts with us. So if we focus externally on what they're doing wrong, then what that does is it takes our attention off of ourselves, so we don't get the healing because we can see their sins and their errors on a platform, but whereas we don't see our own. That's the reason I don't do those type of videos is because the whole exposing this person, exposing that person, typically it's not always a good thing. It's not always a good thing. It's only I only say that it can be decent if somebody goes off and they start speaking witchcraft and they like, I cuss this person, I cuss that person. That then you're like, okay, nah, that ain't right. But like seeing things that I may not like, intercession over accusation. Intercession over accusation. If you attach back to the ex and fall back into sin of sexual immorality, you won't be emotionally available for your spouse. Right. Okay. I'm gonna get ready to close out of here, guys. I don't know because I know that now it's time to turn into a question and answers. Wanted to stick around and give you out. Thank you. God bless you. It was something else I feel like I had to answer, and I'm trying to see what it was. What if they respectfully understanding of your faith and open up to it and they believe as well, just a different faith? Never works. Been there, done that 2 times. Both times I got married, it was the same thing. Both times, it never works. House divided cannot stand. That's the Bible. First time I got married, he believed Jehovah Witness faith. His family was in. He wasn't a practicing Jehovah's Witness, but he made it very clear that if he ever get back in the church, it would be with the Kingdom Hall. So we made this agreement that I would continue on in my church and he could do his faith or what have you, and I'll support him in his and he'll support me in mine. Didn't work. We had Jehovah's Witnesses come into our house and we would do studies with Jehovah's Witnesses, right? And I go to my church, even though he wouldn't come to my church too much, but the Jehovah's Witnesses would come and they preferred us to be sitting there together. So we were having Bible studies with them. We even went to the Kingdom Hall a few times. And every time, they say something, I was just like, no, I don't agree with that. I try to keep it to myself. And then we'll discuss it. It was not a good thing. And I never forget this lady telling me, old lady, they used to come to our house. She even bought us a wedding cake. She came to our house and she was like, "You're holding him back." I was like, wait, what? What? And she said, I didn't want to say this, but you're holding him back. And I said, how am I holding him back? What does that mean? And she was like, basically, he would convert. He would come into full blown Jehovah Witnesses. He would come to the Kingdom Hall if I would convert. And I was like, first and foremost, he doesn't even want y'all here. I'm the one that encouraged because I just wanted him to get Jesus from somewhere. I didn't care where he got Jesus from. I just wanted Jesus to enter into that man's life. I'm the one telling him to set up meetings with y'all. He ain't the one. He don't want to have nothing to do. Secondly, he don't even come to church with me. So how am I doing that? And she was like, but I can't. He kind of, I feel like, if you were to convert, he would. No, he won't. He won't. So the thing about it was, and the second time he Catholicism. That doesn't work. I've learned, don't be unequally yoked. I've learned. So if a man comes to me talking about a different faith, no, it's an automatic no. It's an automatic no because there's usually no conversion or whatever. And I used to think, okay, Catholics, they believe in Jesus. Most religions, all of our religion, Christian faith, all of it stems from Catholicism. But most of our faith is Catholicism that's gone through deliverance, through measures of deliverance, because we're casting out all the paganism and what have you. But I thought if you find somebody that said Jesus, that y'all can come up with an agreement. Nope. Okay. There was something somebody said I felt like I had to address, and I said I was going to come back to it. I feel like. Thank you, Sister Angelic. God bless you. But I literally don't want to scroll up here for 2 years. Okay. Oh wow. How do you join? Go. The ladies have posted a link to the Esther Prep. I think they've already posted it. All right. I'm likely 9 times out of 10. If I missed your question, please forgive me. Oh, I know what I know what it was. I know it was something hovering over my skull, something hovering over my scalp. So how do you break up with the Leviathan spirit? I'm gonna say this, and I'm not gonna answer any more questions. Forgive us thou. But how do you break up? How do you break up the Leviathan spirit? One, seek God. You got to seek God with all of your heart, mind, and your strength. Everything that you are, you got to study your Bible. You got to put yourself in position with God too. You're going to find Leviathan manifesting itself in your relationship with God. So a lot of times, whereas when Leviathan manifested in my relationship with God, it made me speak and not listen. So I was always telling God, always praying, but I spoke and I didn't listen. I had to learn to go through a process of trying to hear God as opposed to just trying to talk to or at God. 3, have conversations with people. Have conversations with people. I started rehearsing that with the people in my life, and when I say rehearsing, and I'm talking about, in times if things got hard, hey, can we talk or what have you? And I say, this is how I feel. That's how I felt or what have you. And having those conversations. And it literally helped me to lose the fear of those conversations, because the fear that I had was that I'd be gaslit. You know, the fear that I had was that the person wouldn't take accountability. I'd be gaslit. The conversation would go left. And then from there, I literally wouldn't want to have nothing to do with the person. That was the fear that I had. I felt like if it was unsaid, we stay connected and we could be done. But if I had the conversation, then everything would go to hell. That was it. So I had to learn to have hard conversations with people. Four, I had to learn to cast down imaginations, thoughts, intercession over accusation. Intercession over accusation. God started really hounding that thought down on me recently. Intercession over accusation. So that you have those thoughts, thoughts that are not good, thoughts that are ungodly. You know, you have to intercede. So, for example, if you notice that, I think about this old friend of mine back when I was in the world. And I felt like what they call the term now, clout chaser. That's literally what I felt about her. Because I noticed that she would always try to connect with people that seemed to be doing well, what have you. And she would just be the fakest person. And she just kind of felt like she needed to disregard other people, like the people in her life. Like she felt like she had to cut them down, demean them, demote them, talk about them in order for her to do that. And I didn't understand it. It made no sense to me. So I would have conversations where I would literally get mad at her. And I'd call her out on it or what have you. I knew she wasn't going to tell the truth or what have you, but I still called her out on it. I was like, that every time I look up, you're doing this, you're doing that, or what have you. But the person that I am now is intercession, intercede. What I should have been doing, but I wasn't saved back then. What I should have been doing, had I been a Christian woman, was interceding for her to get healing. Also, you can bring it to her attention, sis, don't do that. That hurts. That's really disappointing. Or, really just kind of repositioning her in your life. But intercession, you have to learn to intercede, have those hard conversations with people. And lastly, when it comes down to it, take accountability without throwing something in there at the other person. So if somebody comes to you and says, hey, you did this, that hurt my feelings. Now, I'm saying sometimes you want to give clarity and you want to get clarity, but I'm saying that shouldn't happen 100% of the time. That shouldn't always be, you always have a comeback. You have to learn. This is what I had to learn. You had to learn to sit there and say, I'm sorry. I'll make adjustments. I'll change. I won't do that no more. And then that thought, that feeling, Leviathan's going to say, but you got to tell her, Leviathan going to say, deflect, point the blame. No, you do it too. You do it too. Now, what about you? What you going to, are you going to change this? Don't do that. In that moment, even if she's wrong, even if she has error in her life in that moment, or even if he has error in his life, if it's your husband, if it's your man, if it's your boo thing, if it's your girlfriend, if it's your wife, even they have error in their life, don't integrate two accusations. Don't integrate it. Instead, always come to the table with a solution. Always come to the table with a solution instead of a problem. Hey, I remember this accusation. I used to have one against my ex. We would go places and for the most part, we held hands. But anytime like we were mad at each other or occasionally, he would walk up ahead of me. And I didn't like that. And I would be behind him and I said, are we Muslim now? Did we convert? I was like, did we convert? Are you shaming me? Because if you shaming me, then I need to get back in the car or what have you. And we would get into arguments rather than me offering up a solution in that moment. And he was like, you walk too slow, you this, you that. Rather than me saying and offering a solution, he should have offered a solution. I should have offered a solution. I should have sat back and said, hey, that makes me feel bad. It makes me feel like you're ashamed of me. It makes me feel rejected. It makes me feel some type of way when you're storming up ahead of me. I understand that my legs are short. All right. Your legs are longer than mine. But we're supposed to be walking together. I understand if we're shopping and you're doing something, but when we walking through a place and you just way up ahead of me and I'm way behind, it makes me feel some type of way. So here's my solution. And then you offer up a solution. That's how you combat Leviathan. Leviathan, in order to beat Leviathan, you have to get rid of the me and understand that it's a us, it's a we. Anytime you're dealing with, because Leviathan when we start talking about Leviathan comes for covenants. That's it. Leviathan's main objective is to come for a covenant. No, you don't be unequally yoked with unbelievers. But Leviathan's main objective is to come for covenants. That's it. Leviathan's main goal, main assignment is to destroy covenant relationships. And so only way that Leviathan can destroy covenant is if Leviathan can divide. This is what happened in the Garden of Eden. Adam and Eve were divided for a moment, right? Eve bit into the forbidden fruit. When she bit into the forbidden fruit, immediately her and her husband were no longer in agreement. In that moment, it was a divide, there was a split, there was a divorce. But he went back and reconciled when he bit into that fruit. He came into agreement, which meant he followed her into a principle. He followed her outside the will of God. There was a reconciliation outside the will of God. So whenever there is a relationship, you always have to stay in God. You have to unite in Him. And there has to be us, but God has to be the main center of attention. He has to be the main focus. That's the only way you're going to unite in a we. Because if it's me, what I feel, what I want, what I prefer, then there will be no reconciliation. Instead, it creates this environment of, well, if you protecting yourself and you looking out for you, I'm gonna look out for me. You see how that breaks up a marriage, that breaks up a relationship. If you trying to make sure you good, if you trying to protect yourself, you trying to make, I can't join you in that, because then I'm exposed. Does that make sense? I can't join you in that because then I'm exposed. And so then I'm setting myself up to be hurt. I'm setting myself up. And by the time the pain comes down, I feel like 8 shades of stupid because I saw that. And so that in any covenant relationship, God has to be the center of attention. And we all have to unite in Him. We have to focus on Him. If I'm married, our focus has to be God. Our focus can't be my feelings. My focus can't be my feelings. Because if my focus is my feelings, then I'm shielding my feelings. Every conversation is about me. Everything is about how I feel, what I want, and what I think is better for us, as opposed to me understanding that, hey, this is a unit, and I need to consider how he feels as well. I need to consider what he says, what he feels, even if, catch this, even if what I feel, what he says or thinks is stupid. Because that's where Leviathan comes in. Leviathan will always get you to exalt your perspective and demean another person's perspective. He don't know what he's talking about. So you right, he wrong, period. So now you defending your perspective, and then he starts defending his perspective, and then there's a click, there's a split, and y'all pridefully walk away, exalting yourself, shoulders up, and you're like, see, he wanted to play these games, and girl, I showed him. And he walk away, he say, man, I'm now a passport, bro. I'm going across the seas. I'm gonna go across seas and give me a woman. I'm gonna go across seas and give me a boo thing. I'm gonna go across seas. And then he go across seas and get him a woman, and he's still Leviathan with her. He's still Leviathan with her, but he tells her, this is my culture. It's not. This is my culture. In America, you do what I say. You're supposed to cook and clean. That's it. And even though, and that's how it works. So that's how you get past. And I'm going to say this, and this is going to be our comic relief, and I'll let y'all go. Because while I'm talking about that, I'm thinking about Passport Bros. If you never heard of them, look them up. A collective group of Black men who've gone across seas who said that Black women suck, American women suck. And so now they're going across seas to marry women they feel are more submissive. They're going to different countries or what have you. And there's this one. I'm not going to laugh at his ordeal because he needs deliverance and healing. There's this one. I happened to be scrolling and somebody was stitching his video. Man went to Dominican Republic, went over there and lost his flight from Spirit Airlines. Didn't get to the airport on time to get to Spirit Airlines. That speaks within itself. And he was on the internet begging for more money. Asking people to send him cash apps because Spirit Airlines was charging him $100 to rebook his flight. They were charging him $100, and he was like, I done cussed them out, I done screamed, I done did this, and I done did that. That's usually Leviathan. So you have a person like that who never takes accountability, never gets healed, doesn't understand that his financial situation, which is a whole other message, is a reflection of the way that he thinks. And he's willing to invite somebody else into that space. He's trying to invite somebody else into that trauma. He's trying to invite somebody else into that. He doesn't even have enough money to be a husband. He doesn't have enough money to be a provider. And because American women won't allow him to be as toxic as he is, he jumps a flight. Another guy I saw, he went to Thailand. I happened to come across that video right before I went live. He went to Thailand. He got a woman from Thailand, and he was like, baby, he said, do you cook? She's like, mm-hmm. You clean? She said, yeah. And he was like, see, this is why I came. He said, y'all get your passports. That's why I came to Thailand. American women don't cook. They don't clean. Get yourself a traditional wife. You know, that comes from a lack of accountability, emotional intelligence, relational intelligence, the whole nine. You know, the thing I've learned over the course of this event we call life, the thing that I've always, and I can say even when I was in the world, I've always been a fan of conversations. Always. Because I have literally had relationships saved just from talking. And when I say talking, I'm not saying telling my perspective. I'm talking about clearing the air. And I learned accountability is such a powerful weapon against the enemy, because in that moment, you can sit there and say, hey, look, I messed up. I did wrong. Sister Candy, I don't know if I said thank you. God bless you, sis. Thank you. But instead of that, you have people that are going across seas. That was my perspective. I can't laugh at them. That was my perspective when I married the dude from Cameroon. American men, it's gotta be American men. I wasn't delivered or healed. Same demon, different accent. Same demon, different accent. This time I was like, "Lord, hey, okay, demons got accents over here. All right, we're gonna see how this works out." But that's how Leviathan works. It makes you put everybody inside of a box instead of understanding that, hey, I want to let me see. Well, let me talk so I can find out what's wrong with me. Not what's wrong with you. What's wrong with me? Let me talk. Leviathan makes you box everybody up. It's like, okay, I'm moving out of this perspective by putting everything in one single box. Instead of me just sitting back saying, hey, listen, honey, I don't like that. Or him saying, hey, let's talk about, something that we can do differently. That's how Leviathan works. Leviathan will have you exalting yourself, your plans, your perspective, your beliefs, your feelings over that of another person's. That's how Leviathan works. Leviathan is a covenant breaking devil. He will always come for your covenant, and people aid him in doing it. This is why we have to get you to, when going through deliverance, we have to get you to come out of agreement with the enemy so that we can cast the demon out. Because if you don't come out of agreement with the devil, then he gets the right to walk with you. You are integrated. You're one through your belief. You're one through your association with that spirit. And it can't get cast out. If I can't say Leviathan out, if you sitting up there thinking, I'm going to take this man to court, I'm going to take him for everything he got, I'm going to punish him for hurting me. You still in agreement with unforgiveness. You still in agreement with vengeance. You still in agreement with those things. Nobody can cast Leviathan out of you. Nobody can cast Leviathan out of you, because right then and there, you have not humbled yourself. In order to get rid of Leviathan, most powerful, you have to humble yourself. That is the lead into this. Remember, my church, we are having a mass deliverance this Saturday. So if you're in the Atlanta, Georgia area, or you're willing to take a flight, a bus, drive a car, take a train, however you want to get here, if you need deliverance, come to the church. We're having a mass deliverance at 11 o'clock Saturday, Embassy City at 4665 Macland, Macland Road, Powder Springs. Please have a church home. Make sure that you're saved. And make sure you're willing to do the work to remain free. I don't want you to come up there and you're thinking you're going to go back home. You're not going to go to church, and you're just going to come back and you're going to go back into the same relationship, do the same thing, because then you'll end up more bound than you were before. But there has to be accountability. And whenever in dealing with Leviathan, again, there has to be we. That can never be me. If it's me, it's gone from that point on. It has to be him, Most High God, and we for his glory. There has to be unity. But if I'm married and it's me, Leviathan then becomes king over that household, or a minimum king over me. because I'm in that, and I'm talking about me. I'm thinking about me, what I want, what I feel like I should get out of it, as opposed to the other person. That leaves the other person exposed. Whenever there is covenant, there has to be this: I'm looking out for you. I'm looking out for you. I'm looking out for you. Well, I'm gonna look out for you. Well, I'm gonna look out for you. I'm gonna look out for you. Okay, but I'm gonna look at you for you more. I got you. There has to be that. That's where the security comes in. But more than anything, God has to be number one, because it will always split. It will always divide. The fabric always rips where there is godlessness. Does that make sense? Where there is godlessness, it always splits. All right. I don't know. I know y'all probably submitted more questions, but I can't do no more questions because it's 3 hours into this thing. Mail order brides, right? Thank you for saying that, because that brought me back to what I was talking about, the passport bros. I forgive the friend, but I don't want to reconcile. Like I have nothing more than a trauma bond. Well, that was completely understandable. I've forgiven people. I've forgiven people, but I've learned to guard my heart, because I've learned, okay, she'll hurt me, and I don't want to feel hurt like that again. So that's just guarding your heart. That's just guarding your heart. But going back to the whole thing with the passport bros, y'all take accountability. I know y'all got exes, okay? But did you sleep with them before you got married? Take accountability. That's the reason why your relationship didn't work. Because either you legalized their existence and God didn't allow them, didn't want them in your life, or you screwed them out of your life. You unscrewed the covenant. Sister Taja, you're awesome. Thank you, sis. God bless you. You unscrewed the covenant by going outside the will of God with them. And anytime you establish a covenant, anytime you establish an altar outside the will of God, you curse your relationship. You catch that? Anytime you establish a covenant, anytime you establish an altar, anytime you establish something outside the will of God, then you create the snake and the frog's mouth, the frog and the snake's mouth. It'd be interesting to see a frog and a snake. I think I actually saw that. But you become the snake in the frog's mouth. You start getting sucked up, because that's what that does. That's the objective of the enemy, is to get you to come into agreement. He specializes in common sense. He specializes in common sense. In many cases, is just a perverted form of wisdom, right? It sits on the foundation of pride, and it makes you start making agreements with the enemy that sounds good, that'll get people to say, girl, you sure right. I'm telling you right. It'll get you to do that, but it'll get you to destroy covenants in the process. So again, if you find yourself protecting yourself, you find yourself exalting yourself, and you forget that God has will in there. So you rob God of his glory because you exalt your will over his will. You rob God of his glory because you take vengeance. You rob God of his glory because instead of saying, let me reposition everything, let me pray, let me have conversations, let me do that, instead of doing that, you make a decision. You put a period where God wanted to place a comma. That's all I got for y'all. I love y'all. I pray that you guys were blessed by this. Do me a favor, if you have not liked and shared this already, be sure to like and share. I will be back soon. Probably do a couple this week. I got to be in my office pretty much every day this week. But I will be back to talk to you guys whenever I can. And if you want to sow a seed, be sure to sow it. I thought that bit up. If you want to sow a seed, you can definitely sow it. If you want to join Esther Prep University, do that. And lastly, please, I want to see you at the School of Deliverance, especially if you're in the Atlanta, Georgia area. If you need deliverance, if your family needs deliverance, now don't bring your unsaved kinfolk thinking the demon gonna get cast out of them, they're gonna do right. No, they got to go through a process. But if you got people in your family, people who are saved, sanctified, filled with the Holy Spirit, and they need deliverance, and you talk to them and they say, hey, let's take a flight, or we want to go to the Deliverance 4665 Macklin Road. It's going to be at 11 o'clock, Embassy City. Again, it comes up as Relentless Atlanta, still on the GPS, on Google, or what have you, but it's 4665 Macklin Road. All right, I love y'all. I will see you Saturday for some of y'all, and for the rest of you, I will see you soon. Love you.